First item is to adopt the agenda as presented. Do we have any amendments to the agenda? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to add to the agenda under delegation, and with time permitting, the transition housing plan that it's Dave Smith, who is the consultant who worked with the Transition Housing Project Steering Committee, is in time to have that added to the agenda.
Do you have a second? Councillor Butler. Discussion.
Should that be added under late items to give them
Yes.
more time to arrive?
Yes.
Put it at
So,
the bottom.
Yeah, thank you.
and another small amendment, we will reverse items 4C and 4D in reversal. So all in favor of the amended agenda? So carried. Also, there's a reminder that there's an in-camera meeting following directly behind this committee of the whole meeting. Under registered petitions and delegations, our first subject is the 2016 fee for service request to council. And the recommendation is that we receive it for information purposes. Do we have anybody here from the delegation?
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor Conrad, members of council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Alan Cooper, and I'm happy and proud to be the chair of the Boundary Country Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking here because I need to introduce you to a very important person here sitting immediately to my right. I would like to recognize we also have two other board members here. We have Sylvia Birch and we have Kathy Corlett. As well, we have Chris Hammett, who is the city representative. And I believe that is all of the members of our board here. It's been an interesting year for the Chamber of Commerce. As you probably know, the Boundary Country Regional Chamber of Commerce is a fairly new organization. And one of our mandates is to promote and to speak for business across the whole Boundary region. At the same time, we also need to work with individual partnerships with individual municipalities, and of course, Grand Forks is one of those very important municipalities, and we have a very good working relationship with you. We hope to continue that, and we hope to continue to improve in our provision of service. And looking forward, we are excited about the possibility of things to do here in the Boundary. I'm a fairly recent person, 5 years here in the Boundary. I've owned property here for 10 years. And personally, I believe, and I know that our board believes, that business is alive and well in the Boundary region. Certainly, there are always positive and negative stories. But there are many success stories in businesses here, and we really want to promote business. We want to encourage businesses. We want to work with businesses as they strive to maintain themselves, to improve, and to encourage new businesses here in the Boundary. It's been an interesting year here for our Chamber of Commerce because we still are looking to see what is our best role to fulfill and how we can best fulfill that role, not only within the individual municipalities, but also across the Boundary region. Of course, Grand Forks has the largest population base, and we need to work closely with you, and we need to provide good service and work with you, because I know that you're an organization who really believes that business is the heart and soul of our community. And that's our purpose also, to do that. One of the challenges that we've had this year is, of course, we have had to change executive directors. Our previous executive director, James Wilson, has moved on to another position. We thank him for his service. But it was an interesting process in going through looking to choose a new executive director. Who could we possibly get? How many applicants are we going to have? Are we going to have well-qualified applicants for the position? It was an excellent challenge to find out we had a plethora, a cornucopia, a wonderful amount of applicants for the position. And it was a longer process for us to do the choice simply because we had so many good applicants for the position. We had applicants from across the southern BC and into Alberta. We had applicants from small and large communities. We had applicants with a wide variety of skills. So it was a very challenging position, a challenging activity, but also very rewarding. We are lucky enough to have hired what we consider to be a top quality person for the executive director job. And her name is Kathy Wright, and she's sitting immediately to my right. Kathy comes to us from Alberta, as some of us have come also, but she's originally a BC person, and she's returning to her roots in that sense. Huge variety, huge experience bringing to the position. Of course, she's not only been a stay-at-home mother, business owner, but she has worked for the town of Athabasca, community development and tourism. She was for a while a constituency manager of Brian Jean, the MP, and if you know Alberta politics, he is now the opposition leader, the leader of the Wild Rose Party in Alberta. She's been the managing director of the Lesser Slave Lake Regional Tourism. She has been a special project coordinator of Slave Lake and District Chamber of Commerce. She's managed the Regional Visitor Information Center in Lesser Slave Lake. She's been the chamber manager in Chetwynd. And we have found already, and many of you may have met Kathy, that she is enthusiastic, determined, she's goal-driven, she's creative, she's energetic. We're excited about her being here, and I'm going to turn it over now to Kathy to continue with the rest of our presentation.
Thanks, Al. I hope I can live up to all those expectations and nice words. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really, really happy to be in the Boundaries, super happy to be back in BC. My parents are living in Peachland, so to be a little closer to them, I must say, is awesome. Together, I hope that we can make a difference in the chamber and just move forward to a fantastic year in 2016. I'm going to give you a little bit of an update of what the chamber's done in 2015. We've continued on with our business after business evenings. We have another one coming up with the Habitat Restore, December 3rd. We had a business forum last year that many of the city attended, which was very successful. I have a couple copies if anybody would like to take a look at it. We had 20 participants, and we'll be taking a lot from this forum into our strategic planning, which will be coming up. We were again involved with the Business Excellence in Community Awards with Community Futures. We sponsored 2 awards again this year. And we're also had a swag table and an information table, so we're able to talk to people that came to the event. We continue to do social media with Facebook and eBlast. We did some Twitter last year to provided the service also to the city. We also held 2 federal all-candidate forums, one in Grand Forks and one in Midway. Grand Forks had about 250 or 225 people attend, and all 5 candidates, which was a great turnout. Midway had about 60 people attend, and 3 of the candidates were able to show up for that one. Our partnerships with the city, we continued to partnership in Family Day and Canada Day, and this Christmas excuse me, this Christmas, I've sat down with Sarah and we've come up with a bit of a game plan to dress up all the storefronts. I'm gonna try and get them to stay open till 9 p.m. this year for some late night shopping. I'm coordinating the Santa pictures with the credit union for Sarah, Becky sits on our board. And then we're gonna run a storefront contest to sort of dress up our downtown core. I've also, gone to some of the empty buildings and asked them if I could dress their window fronts up so we don't look so abandoned in our downtown. And that's kind of a start to sitting down with the merchants and revitalizing our downtown core a little bit. I started that for this year anyways. Next year, continue with a lot more that way. We continue to promote events and tourism. We continue to do the family-friendly initiative. We had 2 World Host Ambassador programs in 2015, and we will continue with them in 2016. I just need to be trained on it, so it might be a little more into the spring. Our priorities and goals with the city is to assist with Community Futures in trying to get us a community center. They've got an initiative with that and we're hoping that it'll follow through. If not, maybe trying to find another location or center. To connect with the Selkirk College, I've only been on the job for 2 months, so I've not been able to do everything I'd like to at this point. I've met Jennifer and I'd like to connect with her and see how the chamber can work with them. I would like to see things next year, maybe a print community directory or a trade show, golf tournaments, some of those initiatives to try and help us raise some money so we can be self-sufficient more so. Still needing some assistance, obviously, too. Look to find more co-op dollars with Destination BC for marketing our region, and there's other entities that I think we can match our dollars with and make them go a little further. I would like to get a downtown committee going so we can liven up our downtown core year round, not just the summertime and that, but our shoulder seasons too. Our strategic planning session that's coming up will identify a lot of these issues. The downtown business was one of from the forum that came up. Signage, events, any way we can assist maybe a little more. We've had the car club approach us, the fall fair, the Good Sam's Club. They've got an RV rally coming again in 2016 with about 300 people attending. There's a fly fishing event that goes on and has been for quite a few years that I was just aware of at a meeting with Sarah, and I'd like to assist them. There's about 35 families that come in for fly fishing into our community that we could do some hosting on and that. I thought I was standing, so this is very blurry to me because it's too close. I would also like to approach Community Futures. I've done this in past communities in partnership with them on doing a program to help revitalize our downtown. We did this in Chetwynd and we did it in Slave Lake, and it was a program that kind of did a facelift on some of our stores and that, and just sort of livened up our downtown. So I'd like to partner with people like that too. The chamber, I have found out, owns a great big movie screen, so I've talked to Midway and Greenwood, and Sarah about maybe having movies in the park more often and filling our weekends up that don't have events with maybe stuff like that to keep people in town. Shop local programs, obviously, we're looking at having people shop local. We're gonna start out this Christmas season without sort of telling them to shop local, but thanking them for when they shop local, what it does for our communities. Sorry, this is really blurry for me. For positive impacts in our downtown core this summer, we'd like to see more summer sales, more sidewalks type sales, maybe connecting with our fairs and that and theming them to that to draw people down to the downtown core. In Gyro Park and on Market Street. We'd like to set up a lunch with some big industry, Roxall and some of the mills and that around the area and see what the chamber can do with them and some partnerships and what they'd like to see from us. Working with tourism, we'd like to work a little more maybe with them about our shoulder seasons and having more go on with that. My past communities, I had TV shows like Fishing Canada, Dinosaur Fishermen, and them come. I've got some pretty good connections with them, so I'd like to try and encourage them to come our way. Some of the motorcycle clubs that I used to connect with, the Golden Clubs and different things, have them come and do tours because we have some fantastic riding in this area. Create some day trips around the boundary, so people when they stay here, they have things to do around the boundary and keep them within us is another one of my goals. Maybe arrange some fan tours between our visitor centers so their staff is aware of what our services are more so. Play and stay type packages, mountain bikes, for our quadding trails and different things, packages to encourage those people to come is also some of our goals this year. We will be hosting the business forum, again, maybe 2 possibly around the boundary, 1 in Grand Forks and 1 within it. We would also like to update our website. Our website business directory is not a very good directory. It really needs work. We're looking at the ones that host your website, so we can maybe merge calendars better and have a local person. Our person isn't quite local, they're in Cranbrook, and that's a few issues on getting it up to date. I'd like to start a monthly newsletter for the chamber, and it'll start in January. I'm starting the template on it now. We'd also like to examine the hours of operation in the business core and some of the signage, because we hear some complaints on that too. We would also like to continue going to the Vancouver Trade Show, the Outdoor Adventure Show with the city, and that one I think again we'll do in 2017, Sarah mentioned. One of the other things I've thought of doing is having a night for all our service groups. Being a newcomer to the area, trying to find who's in charge of Rotary Girl Guides, the fishing person in town or whatever, to hold a sort of nonprofit service group awareness night in the fall, so everybody can see what services we offer in that. We'd like to bring some local value to our memberships, so we have more businesses rewarding people that do business and support business in the community and the chamber. Other than that, I am so excited to be here to work with our events, our car shows, to grow our community in every way possible. I look forward to hosting more business forums, business after business nights, growing our local business, working with the downtown merchants, with committees, Family Day, Canada Day, hosting movies in the park, etc. I'm extremely excited for 2016 and to be part of the chamber, and I'm very thankful that I was the chosen one. A couple of things before I stop talking. I have a few dates. We have our AGM coming up November 17th. It's at 6 p.m. and we'll be in the Community Futures Boardroom. If anyone would like to attend, we'd love to have you there. The business after business, I have a couple invitations I'll leave behind for the Habitat Restore on December 3rd. The Grand Forks Christmas Light Up and Parade is December 4th. And our local shopping program for December's and our windows getting dressed up. I hope you look forward to seeing that, because I know I certainly do. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present to the city of Grand Forks and your continued support. I invite you to be an active member and encourage your involvement and welcome your ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy and Ellen, for your very informative presentation. I'm going to open it up for discussion from council or the gallery. Councilor Butler.
Yeah, that was an excellent presentation. You've got me excited. The only concern I have is that you're gonna burn yourself out.
You know, I'm super lucky. I have a really good board with support, that, yeah, I've leaned on a lot and they've certainly been there to back me. So I think we'll be okay, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. You've just got a lot of great ideas and I'd love to talk to you more about them at some time. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Hammond.
Yes, thank you, Kathy, for that presentation. It was great, and I believe you were at the workshop for TOTA for that one day.
I was.
And when we asked that they form a regional advisory tourism committee, I'm really optimistic that we're going to see some progress happening in this term because of the collaboration amongst the groups and the regions. So I'm looking forward to working with you on that because I think we have a lot of the same ideas.
I do too.
Good for coffee.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Councilor Thompson.
Well, thank you, Kathy and Ellen. That was excellent. And the initiatives and the ideas that you've put forward that you're going to be working on can only benefit not only the business community, but the community as a whole. And we wish you every good luck.
Thank you.
Do I have any other questions? Again, thank you. Very well done. Excellent.
Thank you.
Kudos to you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We have a motion to receive for information purposes, presentation from the VRCC, and determine to move forward the request for the 2016 budget process. Councilor Frog, Councilor Butler. All in favor? So carried. Move on to our next presentation. It's from the 2015 Boundary Museum. It's a 2016 fee for service request from the council. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, when did you took that picture, sure?
Yeah.
Good morning. Mayor Conrad, councilors, staff members, and members of the gallery. My name is Joe Modishaw. I ran a business in Grand Forks, MCon Services, for 22 years before I retired the first time. I was asked to stay on a couple more years, so total I've been in Grand Forks 24 years, and fairly active member of the community in my early days, and decided to give back recently when I retired in May. So I'm the president of the Boundary Museum Society. On my left is Cher Wires. She's our manager. We're a bare bones group of dedicated citizens, and we're dedicated to the preservation of our cultural history in the Grand Forks and surrounding area. We're located up on Reservoir Road. I don't know how many of you have visited us there. The first time I visited, I'm a history buff in general. I worked with the BC Road Builders in working on their 50-year history this year, and decided that this was my bent. It always has been, and like I said, I joined the Boundary Museum Society at that time. We have a real dedicated group of people, and they're here to preserve our history. Like I said, again, we're bare bones. We only have one paid person on staff and a part-time archivalist, or archivist.
Sue Adrian.
Sue Adrian. So for the past several years, the city of Grand Forks has allocated $70,000 to the Boundary Museum Science Society, which we are extremely grateful. Considering where we came from several years ago, the society was in a deficit, it was on a downswing, and a group of people in Grand Forks, not including myself at that time, didn't want to let it go. The USCC and the Doukhobor community got behind us and are assisting us also. Again, I don't want to read through everything here. We have our value statement. Everybody's got a presentation before them. So we've provided that to you. We've got a mandate and mission statement. We're working on updating our strategic plan. The board before us had a 5-year strategic plan, which we're updating constantly year to year. Again, I'm not sure how many of you have been there. I know Christine Thompson is actively involved with us and has been there, but it surprised me. They've done just a terrific job up there. 98% of us are volunteers and give countless hours. And it's all, like I said, preserved to plan events for the community to bring to showcase what we have preserved up there. Not only are we a museum of cultural history, but we have active displays. We're actively working with the Grand Forks Milling Heritage Society in a partnership. They provide us with flour up there, and we have a outdoor baking oven that we have done several events throughout the year. It shows how many loaves of bread we've sold.
240.
240 loaves of bread.
Well, we made them.
We make them out
Most of them get
outside. Yeah, they get eaten. We hold, in addition, we've hosted several outdoor events, including the local Rotary Club has held 2 international events out there. They brought people in from Thailand and correct me if I'm wrong.
United States. Their
and
business
the
exchange
States.
groups, yes.
So we brought them in for luncheons. We've held weddings, meetings are held there, educational seminars with children's groups in town. We've held festivals, and again, like I repeat myself, the Grand Forks Milling Society works with us. We also work with the Woodworkers Guild. They do restoration for us. In turn, we work closely with them and provide them with space at times when they need it. But as you can see up there, we've done a 2-seater mail wagon that was there. We've done a cutter sleigh. They're just a crucial entity to us. They help us out quite a bit and work with us closely. We've had over 2,150 guests this year from all over the world. We've had them from Australia, from Austria, from all across Canada. 2,150, which represents about a 50% increase. So as people get to know us and get to hear about us, we're signed a lot better. We've worked with highways and they've signed us so people know exactly where we are. The buildings being renovated constantly, the surrounding buildings. We've got a livery stable up there that's going to be active part-time during the summers. The baking that goes on, we've landscaped it. One of the major things the board previous to me joining them did was they got grants and did a solar project, which we now it's fully up and working. The building there stores the batteries and some of our museum archives. They provide us, they cut our electrical bill about $1,400 or so. So it's really, we're giving back, and we're recognizing climate change and how we can provide our own electricity. We run ourselves during the day. We sell back to the grid. We've got money returned from Fortis for the usage that they use over and above what we use. At night, obviously, it doesn't generate any power, so the grid kicks back in automatically. Again, we work with different groups, the Granby Wilderness Society, the 4-H Club, and the local Christina Lake Welcome Center. So we work with many groups around the area. We're becoming more active in the community. We're bringing more people into the community, and we're dedicated again to preserving the history of the area. And we invite all of you the rest of you to come up and see if you haven't already visited us. And we appreciate having time here today.
I just wanted to bring your attention as well to the Boundary Historical Society. We formed a wonderful partnership with this organization, and I sit as a director with this group for my second year. And most recently, we just acquired 22 boxes of photographs from that was stored previously at the Greenwood Museum. So we're really anxious to get back into our headquarters in the lower level here at City Hall to work on this accessioning and archival service for the surrounding area. So that is one of our key ones. The Kettle Belly Food Co-op, we had their second annual Harvest Festival on the grounds of the Boundary Museum, and plans are for a continued annual event with this organization as a partner. Finally, one of the opportunities we've had with our local Community Futures Boundary was the collection management funding for an applicant to join us through the Opportunities Fund program, Service Canada, and in a 31-week program for new training for this individual. So Joan has joined us through and she is looking after collection management. She actually joined us through Job Options BC originally in May. We had 3 job options applicants this summer, so the opportunities for volunteer and work experience throughout the community has proved very beneficial, both for the Boundary Museum and for these applicants. Our final picture here that I just love to share with people is the Russian children from some of our local schools here. Their teacher brought them out to visit us, and they sat down and had a number of events that they completed during the day. But this little display here, or this when they were standing out on the front deck, it actually says "thank you" in Russian. This year we were visited by a gentleman a professor from the University of Innsbruck, Austria, who will be bringing 17 to 21 graduates in BA Studies in Geography to experience the Doukhobor culture. And it is a requirement of their degree program at their university to visit religious and ethnic groups abroad. So we're very fortunate to be included in that trip that they'll be making to Canada. So finally, as our president, Joe Modishaw, touched on the various number of groups that we do see out at the museum, we do want to thank and express our deepest gratification to this community and the surrounding area, to Area C and Area D and the City of Grand Forks for the funding and contributions that they have provided for this beautiful facility. And that's just an aerial photograph that we have. Our funding partners, of course, we'd like to recognize everyone who participates in the funding of our establishment. And finally, there she is, Doreen Sorensen, one of our key volunteers this summer in our bread making program. And the key behind this program and our summer programs is for the visitors to have the experience. And when we make 240 bread loaves and cookies and that, a lot of them get eaten up. But if we have any left over, we take donations for the bread that we can share with the community. And that is our presentation. So thank you once again. And if you have any questions, we're available to answer for you. And one of our directors is here also, Laura Loader.
Thank you for a very interesting and informative
Thank you.
presentation. Any questions or discussion? Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you. The pictures are absolutely gorgeous. They're obviously aerial shots, which was kind of.
Oh, I had an in.
I thought you might. I understand that the museum is doing another initiative on is it the local mapping or the?
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, the map, the City of Grand Forks map project that has been looked after by Ted Morris for a number of years, I think he said 13 years. He's actually passed it over to the museum as a fundraising opportunity. We're just getting started on it for 2016. So we're hoping that we'll have the same support that Ted did have in the community. And he is, of course, one of the volunteers that is behind the scenes helping us with this project. We're looking at an opportunity to increase our revenues in light of the facility that we do have up there. We have, a number of new additions, the new exhibition building. There's 3 vignettes that are being developed in that building for transportation, mining, and forestry. So a key part now is we have the facility, we have the buildings, we now need to maintain it all as well into the future. And the Duke of Moore community is very helpful in that regard as well.
Councillor Thompson.
So the maps that will be done, are they going to be distributed province-wide, or is it just a local?
No, it's the same program that Ted conducted, the 30,000 maps that are made. We'll forward them out. We have his list. As I said, everything's just handed over to us. It was a beautiful transition for us, and we look forward to bringing this new map look, hopefully.
So it's going to be a self-sustaining.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it is, yeah.
Councillor Hammond.
I love what you're doing up there. I think it's amazing and it's growing every time I hear and see and go up there and visit. There's more. But getting back to the map, was it purchased by the Boundary Museum as a business?
No, we actually brought it on board as a project. So there is an agreement in place. If the project develops along, we will be making some remuneration in that regard. It's sort of a confidential agreement with the because we haven't worked on it yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in its beginning.
So there's no cash paid out to purchase
No.
the business?
Not at this time with anybody. It's just the same, the advertisers pay for the advertising, just much like your visitor's guide.
Councillor Butler.
Thanks. Yeah, my kids had a great time when they came to the museum with their class, and they got to call me from an antique phone. They said one of those ones that dials,
Yes,
I had
yes.
an antique. Yeah. And also those pictures that you got seem amazing. I'd love to see those displayed around town in some way. I just have a thing for.
The 22 boxes?
Yeah,
Oh, we got
not
them.
all 22 boxes, of
No.
course, but yeah,
We
I'd love to
intend-
see more of those.
Yeah.
We're just.
It's gonna be a while, but we actually have Herb Noseworthy's collection.
Oh.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's exciting.
Yeah.
We just acquired them, so.
It's a long process.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Any other questions or discussion? Thank you again. May I have a motion to receive for information purposes from the Boundary Museum and determine to move forward the request 2016 budget versus Councillor Thompson? May I have a second? Councillor Hammond. All in favor? So carried. Our next presentation is from the Grand Forks Art Gallery. The subject matter is a fee for service request to council. We have someone. Oh, and again,
Yeah, I think there's this one would be.
I'm not talking.
Then somebody else was, when they're gonna go talk to them. Yeah, I can.
Well, I point this in any direction, or?
I think the antenna's right there, but I think that box everything okay.
Thanks. Your worship, council, staff, members of the gallery, my name is Steve Hullett. I am the co-chair of the Grand Forks Art Gallery and Heritage Society, and with me is one of our board members and the chair of our finance committee, Terry Woodruff, and holding down chairs in the back row are board members Judith Lloyd and William Cayley. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present to you. We have this PowerPoint presentation. It's a little lengthy. I'll go through it fairly quickly, and I'll pause on a couple of the salient points, I think, and then at the end we'll have an opportunity for discussion. And that's the outline there. So in terms of the introduction, I think everybody's familiar that we moved in to the courthouse in 2008, and it's 2015, and the time has gone pretty quickly. Just want to go through a few of the highlights. There are visual art exhibitions that are presented every year, and these are just a couple of the examples here. We have a very strong membership base. We're working towards 400 in terms of members, businesses, individuals, families, that sort of thing. We have a boundary showcase and studio watch. It's open to everyone within the region. And this last year we had over 70 artists and artisans and crafters, and they were all included in the exhibition. And we also have an opportunity here for very either single or small group exhibitions for boundary artists. We have a permanent collection, which we are told by experts is very, very impressive. It has a value at the moment of around $350,000, and that is actually an asset of the city. And I just want to emphasize that it's not just local, but it's national and international artists who have made contributions to our permanent collection. We have our permanent heritage gallery, and that is in the building. It is, it's been in place now for over 4 years. It provides a historical overview of the community, and it also serves, as people come through the gallery, it also serves to encourage them to spend more time in the community and to look at other historical centers, including the Boundary Museum, the Duke of Bar Flour Mill, and others. And just while I'm on this, I gotta tell you, if you haven't tasted that bread, it's amazing, seriously. The East Heritage Gallery, this is where we have a rotating exhibition that goes through. We try and do about 3 exhibitions a year. This year, we had we called it Tom Thompson and the Gray Canoe, but the Kettle River Canoes, Mike Elliott, he donated a 1960 restored chestnut canoe as a raffle fundraiser. I bought a ticket, but I thought, what would I do with this canoe if I ever got it? I'd be scared to put it in the river. I would scratch it, do something. But the winner, interestingly enough, from New Westminster, when this couple, when they got married in the East, they canoed from Quebec to the West Coast.
Wow.
And I thought it fantastic that they were able to win this canoe. Next highlight is the educational program. This is a core piece of the work that we do. We support the BC curriculum. with research and development, learning tools, and it's one of the top most popular field trips for Boundary schools. And it's an amazing program. To see those kids in there and getting engaged is really, it's really great. Visitor Center. This center continues to grow. We continue to provide additional tourism services as well through outreach. And through the Visitor Center, we have to be on our game here because things are changing in this whole area and with Tourism BC. They're moving a little more away, more towards electronic and internet-based services and a little further away from bricks and mortar. So we are on that, and we are making sure that we're keeping up and we're actually ahead of the curve. And just one more slide on that. On a more local basis, we also take reservations for the municipal campground for the city. In terms of our art rental and sales program, again, this is a very popular program. What we do is we rent art out. People can't part with it, so they buy it. It works really well. In terms of revenue generation, we have a number of special events throughout the year. We had a Rembrandt's Attic this year. We had, as I mentioned, the Tom Thompson Great Canoe Raffle, we did facilities rentals, our wine tasting, we did the garden tour this year, and Artisan Christmas Fair is coming up. We have, just touching on some of the special fundraising events, I'll go through this pretty quickly. It's the, our 24th annual wine tasting will be held on the 28th. It's sold out, I'm told. And we will again be partnering with the GFSS grads to ensure a safe ride home fundraiser for their class. We have other special fundraising events, as I talked about. Rembrandt's Attic, again, a couple of examples there. There was the garden tour, some highlights there. And of course, we get grants. We see funding from the BC Arts Council, BC Gaming, Canadian Heritage, Council for the Arts, and that's for art programming. So we follow on through our website, social media, and the world can follow us through that. We're continuing to upgrade our website and go through a lot more through social media in terms of promoting the gallery and what it has to offer. We have 3 full-time, 2 part-time gallery employees, and we have, of course, the backbone, which is our volunteers. Without them, we would not exist. We have a strategic plan. We have a purpose, and we have an underpinning principle. And it rests on the strong evidence that thriving arts and cultural communities not only create a vibrant society, but also contribute to economic growth, tourism, job creation, and foster public opportunities to explore avenues of heritage and cultural identity. I apologize for reading that out, but it's really important just to emphasize that. And recent studies have across Canada that have looked at the impact of cultural industries. In BC, it contributed over 3% to GDP in the province. And that has surprised a lot of people, and it's one of the highest in Canada, outside of Ontario. Our strategic plan, we have a mission, we have a mandate, we have core values. The 2 main objectives is a commitment to providing universal public access to visual arts and heritage programming, and to foster understanding, interest, and enjoyment, of the arts and heritage throughout the community and throughout the region. And there are a number of slides in here that you can look at your leisure, but it goes through in terms of talking about our goals and how we approach those. Goal number 3, enhance financial stability. This is always a challenge to try and maintain a stable annual revenue stream. And it's particularly difficult because where we apply for grants, it is reliant on the annual fiscal framework process with the province and also with the federal government. And to be quite blunt, it also ties in with the political cycles. So After elections, we get cut, and before the elections, we get more than we asked for. It's an interesting model, but we've learned to deal with it, and we are able to smooth our revenues and how we deal with things. So a financial overview. On the revenue side, the critical piece to us is the continuing support from the city of Grand Forks. We get federal and provincial grants. We have our own earned revenues. We get donations and memberships, which provide a core source. On our expenditure side, we have the usual wages, exhibition costs, education, special events, administrative costs, building maintenance, and the usual kinds of things that you would expect with running what is in fact a cultural business. Now, this is a breakdown of our revenue sources. And I want to make just a couple of comments here, if I may. First of all, clearly the city is the core funding. But I also want to point out that the gallery has been very, very effective in raising other revenues from other sources. The grants that we apply for present a challenge, because when you put a budget forward, you have to apply for the whole grant. Of course, nobody ever gets the whole grant. And so before the ink is even dry on your application, you are running a deficit because we want to show a balanced budget. The other thing that is changing a bit here is with the BC Arts Council, and we've just sort of found this out recently, is that one of the considerations they don't really tell you about when they give grants is the amount of local support that you have. And I had a one-on-one with a retiring member of the board of the Arts Council, and he was saying that the fact that the city of Grand Forks supports us to this extent is a major factor in getting grants from the province and also the federal government. What it does, it shows that the local community and the local region supports the gallery. With that support, that levers other types of grants. Other smaller communities are going to try to start things up, even larger communities. If they don't have that core support from the local community, then the granting agency will think, well, okay, they don't really have the support, we'll put the money elsewhere. And I think that's important to understand. That's important for us. Expenditures, that's just a little pie chart, shows where it goes. The major part goes to wages, and the other little shapes in there in terms of the usual application of expenditures. So this is the budget summary, and the actuals coming up for 2014, 2015 are there, and they're shown, and we, for the most part, ran a balanced budget. In terms of the forecast, for the end of this year, we're forecasting at the moment a net loss of about $14,000, and we will take measures to make sure that that budget comes in balanced. In progress, we're looking at the 2016-2017 budget. We are starting where we're at this year, and the reason there's a range in there is because it's going to depend upon how successful we are in terms of our grants. So if you look at each year, you're going to see revenues and expenditures increase, and you're going to ask why, at least I would ask, why have your expenditures gone up? And it's because when you get a grant, you are able to put in place some sort of an initiative, and with that come expenditures. So they kind of map each other as they go. So next year, when we apply for grants, we're sort of looking in the range to continue to grow, as we've been very successful, continue to grow, and we're anticipating revenues in that range, and therefore we are anticipating expenditures in a similar sort of range, and we will again target for a balanced budget. So summary is that we are committed to advancing our mission, and we are committed to all the things that I just went through. And so we look forward to working with the city to renew the joint 5-year fee-for-service agreement and to get all of the little bits and pieces that we need to get in place to continue. So I want to thank you for your time, your worship and council staff, for allowing us to make this presentation. I want to emphasize that the continuing support from the city is, we are asking for an amount that is equivalent to what you've given us over the last couple of years. And we hope that this presentation has provided you with the kind of information you need to do that. But of course, we are open to any further requests for information and any questions. Your worship.
Thank you for your presentation. Questions, Councillor Thomas?
Thank you, that was an excellent presentation, thank you very much. The rentals of your facilities for public, for events, I understand that the rates have increased substantially. And is that impacting the gallery's ability to generate revenues through that source?
Yes, we went through a strategic planning exercise a number of months back. And we also looked again at the gallery as a business. And we went through a very detailed analysis of the operations and sort of a source and application of funds, what was happening. And we started looking at our rentals, and they were quite a bit out of line with other similar facilities in the region. And we're going through a process of trying to change that. But as soon as you go from one regime to another, there's adjustments that have to be made. And I think in a couple of areas, we may have tried to move a little too fast. So we're kind of taking a step back and looking at it and saying, well, wait a sec, that might be on paper what we should be doing, but maybe we better just go back and revisit in a few areas.
Do I have any other questions or discussion? In that case, may I have a motion to receive the information for information purposes from the Grand Forks Art Gallery and determine to move forward the request of the 2016 budgeting process? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Hammond, all in favor? So carried. Thank you once again. Next presentation is from the Boundary and District Arts Council.
Good morning, Your Honorable Mayor and City Councilors, staff, and all of the interested gallery participants. My name is Susan Haas. I'm treasurer of the Boundary District Arts Council. We are a much smaller group than those that have presented, but we treasure the support from the city for our efforts. And everybody will be happy to hear. I have a very small presentation in comparison, but we, again, are just as important. And one thing I could mention before I start is that the last presenter said, if you have support from your city, you get better grants. That is exactly in our position also. If we do not have the support in the city in our fee-for-service agreement, we would not get very much money from the British Columbia Arts Council. So it is important here. And so we hereby submit our 2016 fee-for-service request for $4,500 as per our signed fee dated April 24th, 2015. And the following describes our services that the Boundary District Arts Council, known as BDAC in our realm, has already and will provide in the 2015-16 fiscal year. We have 3 performance series, which you have a poster of. Bazzi was performed at the Gem Theatre on October 22nd, 2015. Stephen Fearing will perform at the Gem Theatre this next week, November 19th. And in the spring, we have our 3rd one, The Lion, the Bear, and the Fox. And they will be performing at the Gem Theatre on April 8th, 2016. They are all top-notch qualified performers for the Arts Council, and we are happy to have them come and invite everyone to come and buy a ticket and enjoy some wonderful talent music. And the second thing on our list is British Columbia Arts Week in April. Every year we partner with the gallery too, and we do the school tours for them, and we do the boundary showcase with them and reception for the public. And it is sponsored by the BDAC, the Arts, British Columbia Arts Council and the gallery as one of our mandates to perform. And every other year, we have a Kettle River Festival of Arts and Culture, and we'll see what happens in the 2016 year for that. The annual grants to our qualifying member groups that we have are distributed annually in June, and they are most important for their survival, and they help keep us running. We also have yearly scholarships to qualified graduates at the Grand Forks Secondary School and qualified graduate at the Boundary Central Secondary School also. And that's to support those students that have made an interest in their school years to the arts and culture. We also want to thank our appreciation to the city for our storage office supplies provided at the Gallery 2 by the City of Grand Forks. This central location is convenience for BDAC-sponsored events and serves to keep BDAC-related business transactions and dollars within the City of Grand Forks business district. The arts and culture serves to express the character of our communities by nurturing creative expression, education excellence, economic vitality, and quality of life. The Boundary Country is a region renowned for its values of innovation, opportunity, and inclusiveness. These are values which Boundary artisans represent in their work and which afford us as an environment in which not only our artists, but all of our community can survive. BDAC supports the value of arts and culture in the Boundary by initiating, investing in, and fostering artistic and cultural activities and events. In doing so, we strive to engage and maintain the creativity of every resident of the continual building of the Boundary as a healthy, vibrant, and inclusive place in which to work, live, imagine, and sustain our future. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Do you have any discussion? Councilor Nov?
I've worked closely with the Arts Council over the years, and I think you're doing an amazing job. I know it's not without its struggles because membership levels and number of volunteers that you have.
There's never enough.
There's never enough, and you usually, and you have in here 4 performance series.
Sometimes 4, sometimes 3.
Okay.
Yes.
And you obviously, as a Boundary group, you receive funding from regional districts. Because you wouldn't, you don't receive any funding, so you're surviving strictly on what the city provides for you?
Yes.
Have you approached the regional district?
I think we have, I'm not sure, yeah, but we generally are pretty well up to who we can apply for help.
I would definitely go back to.
Yeah, but I will check.
Go back to Roly and to Grace and to Vicky
Yes.
and try to get the whole region on board. That would bolster
It would
you
be very nice. Yes.
and
Great
make things a lot easier for you, because I know you try to do really good work.
Yes.
You know, and you do very good work, it's just
Yes, and that
struggle.
could have been part of the past history. I'm relatively new.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Councilor Crowe.
It's lit up. Yes, in the past, the directors have supported projects like Art Week and stuff like that through their grant and aid funds. So Area E.
Just specific events.
Yeah. And just confirmation that the $4,500 requested would be matched by the province.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
Just so everybody knows.
Councilor Thompson?
Thank you, Your Worship. The BDAC is an umbrella organization, I believe, of a number of artisan groups and cultural groups.
Yes.
How many members fall under that?
This year, as of our AGM last month, we have about 13, I believe. Yeah, it's up and down by a few every year.
So those funds are used to
We
assist.
divvy them up between the member groups that apply for a grant to us, and that qualify by participation in meetings and so forth.
Good, thank you.
You need more money.
Do you have any other questions or discussion? In that case, may I have a motion to receive the presentation from the Boundary and District Arts Council and determine to move it forward for the rest of the 2016 budgeting process? Councillor Crog, Councillor Hammond, all in favor? So carried. Thank you once again. Our next delegation is from Selkirk College, and the subject matter is to update the community leaders on the enrollment numbers, financial impact, and current strategic goals. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Your Worship and Council and staff and members of the gallery for an opportunity just to update everyone on happenings at Selkirk College. There's two keys. My name's Angus Graham. I'm the president of Selkirk College. And I've worked, actually, I was thinking about this as I was driving over. I was first hired in 1991 as a continuing ed instructor, and one of the very first classes I taught was just across the street at our Grand Forks campus. So I'm going to turn that on. I also have with me Tiffany Snowart, who is our chair of our Education Council and a member of our Board of Governors. The college is governed by two governance bodies, our Board of Governors and our Education Council. And the Education Council chair also sits on our board. Tiffany's also a faculty member and the chair of our School of Business, and is probably quite relieved that I'm going to do most of the talking today. But it's great to be here, and again, it's proven that it never rains in the Boundary, and we're happy to be here today. I just wanted to update everybody on Selkirk College and some of the things that are going on. And so we're getting out to all the local mayors and council and regional districts and local leadership to do that in all of the 6 communities that we have sites and campuses at. Just on the mission statement, just want to hone in on the 3 verbs: inspire, transform, and serve our communities and our learners. So that's key to what we do as a college. Our vision statement you've got a copy of in the materials, and it's just really about describing the kind of community college that we want to be and the learning environment that we want to create. Grand Forks is a really important part of our college. We operate in 6 communities, and 7 if you count Crawford Bay. We have a little partnership with a school in Crawford Bay. 8 sites in those communities, and so it's really great to get out to Grand Forks and tell you a little bit about ourselves. Right now, currently we serve about 11,000 learners a year. And that could be everyone from a 1-day first aid recertification to a 4-year degree. 10,000 or more of those students are domestic students, and there are about 345 international students. That number is bigger this year, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. 27 is the median age. That's the age of the student that splits our population in half. So it's not an average, but it gives you a sense of we're really focused on mature learners and learners of all ages, really. There are 80,000 people in the West Kootenay Boundary. And so going back to that last number of 11,000, we serve 1 in 8 individuals, 1 in 8 citizens in our region. And we're very proud of that stat. I don't think it's repeated in many places in the province. We are an affordable option to post-secondary and everything from university transfer to certificates, diplomas, advanced diplomas, degrees, and continuing ed. And one of our strategies for attracting students, of course, is to remain an affordable local option. One of the things we're working against is our own demographics in the region. If I count every high school between Midway and Crawford Bay and Caswell and the Cusp, the number of high school graduates is shrinking. The number of young people in our region is shrinking. And so we've had to think of better ways of bringing in enrollments. And this year was the first year, or last year was the first year that only half of the students at Selkirk College came from the West Kootenay Boundary. The rest are coming in from outside the region. We just got the 2015 enrollment numbers, and that number at the very far right will go up about another 200 for domestics, and then the international students are at about 425 right now. So we've increased our international again this year. We bring in students from approximately 20 countries. They study in 26 different programs at the college. It's not just English as a second language. This is a group of nurses from India, so they're already RNs, and they came to take our gerontology program. Many of them will go return to India. Some are making it part of their immigration process. Our number of Aboriginal students is increasing. We've really done a focused effort on increasing the numbers of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit students attending the college. And again, that number is set to rise again this year. As I mentioned in the top, 50% of our students come from outside the region. That has a tremendous impact on our college, just not only culturally, but financially and many spin-offs to the region as well. And so our domestic headcount last year increased by 7. That'd be another 4 or 5% this year, and our international headcount will go up another 40, 50% this year. We employ 358 full-time staff in 3 different unions and an exempt group, so 2 instructional unions, a support union, and then an excluded group. And we did a couple of years ago, we did an economic impact analysis. If you added the budget of the 40.4 million, ours is a little bit higher this year, about 43 million. And you added that number of 402, it's what, and you factored in on an annual basis what the additional earning power of our graduates who stay in the region are able to contribute to the tax base, and the other economic spin-offs of our tuition dollars coming in from outside the region. It's about a $200 million economic impact, again, to the West Kootenay boundary, with real impact to the community of Grand Forks. Our academic programming side of the house has 8 schools, industry trades, health and human services, university arts, academic upgrading, environment, hospitality, business, and the arts, an international development unit, and a community ed unit. One of our big clients locally here in the community ed is Unifab. We do some work with them on their workforce development. And then the other outside circle are all the other business units that help us achieve our educational and community service goals. What's not there is, of course, our finance and admin side and our ancillary services. So we have residences and food services, etc. It's a good time to be at a community college. The whole movement was started about 50 years ago to create place-based local and regional higher ed opportunities. We take that very seriously here at Selkirk, and in the current job opportunities trends in terms of the changing demographics, 42% of that 1 million jobs expected to come open between now and 2025 are available to students from colleges with certificates, diplomas, and advanced diplomas. And then we also contribute, of course, to the 35% university education. So it's a very good time to enroll at a community college. What we did too recently is we asked the Conference Board of Canada to look at BC's employer credential needs. They went out and they interviewed employers all over the province. We were trying to counter and or augment provincial workforce data. It's not always that accurate in some sectors. And what we found is with the boundary and the Okanagan and Kootenay, it's a little different than what you might expect in the metropolitan area. It's good for communities like Grand Forks to know that it's right across the board in terms of where the opportunities for young people and retraining learners are to be found. So certificates, trades, diplomas, and degrees. So a nice even spread there that we can really contribute to. It's a different world for us. In 1989, there were only 3 institutions in BC that granted degrees, and the rest of us tried to feed those 3 universities or feed the workforce. And now in 2013, there are 38 institutions, public and private in BC, 30 of which offer baccalaureate degrees. Just gives you an idea of how the competitive landscape has changed. And we're thriving. I think we're being very successful right now. Our enrollments are increasing, our budget is increasing, and we hope our impact to our community is increasing. Just on the home stretch, I'm hoping I'm keeping within time here. We are just about to celebrate 50 years as an institution. We were the first community college outside the metropolitan areas in 1966. And we started with a celebration of our trades campus in Nelson that was built in 1964. And so lots of things will be happening locally to celebrate that 50-year or half-century mark as a regional community college. Our trades programmings are continuing to really be very, very high demand and busy. And we are hoping to make an announcement fairly soon on a $18 million investment by the province in our trades campus. It's 50 years old and really showing. Continue to do lots of interesting programs for young people, whether it's environmental geomatics, arts, hospitality and tourism. Our new rural pre-medicine program has been very successful in its first 2 years, and the whole idea behind that is a cohort-based program to help prepare students for a good application to medical school, students who want to stay in rural areas, because that's a challenge that we're all having in rural BC. Many of our health programs, again, have an international component, but are also successful with our domestic students. We run an allied health campus in Trail with medical transcription, home care assistant, nursing unit clerk, and then our bachelor's of nursing degree students are at Castlegar, and they're working on, that's not a real person, by the way, it's a simulator. Our business program continues to do really well provincially in terms of students achieving awards at competitions. And again, one of the challenges for us at the Castlegar campus, and indeed with our leased and rental campuses and sites, is keeping them current. So the bandwidth, the technology, the connections to our other sites is critical. And again, I think this is the last slide. We've really been ramping up with our two cultural initiatives at the college: internationalization, so better preparing the institution to be ready for our influx of international students. It's heavy work though, to change the operation, and then of course to indigenize or create a safer learning environment for our Aboriginal students who are coming from almost as many nations as our international students from across the country. And then our arts programming, again, is having a big impact for both international and domestic students. If you haven't been to a Saints game, try and take one in. We won the cup again last year, and by beating SFU, by the way, 10 times our size.
Really?
And
That's impressive.
and it's been a wonderful way of creating ambassadors for the institution and creating a sense of school spirit and team spirit. So this is the last slide. I'll end here, and about 800 certificate, diploma, degree recipients are eligible each year for graduation, and about 300 come across our stage, and we take the time to do that, and it's one of our favorite days in April, and I can guarantee you that every single person in that picture has a different story to tell, and that's what we love about being in higher education, is the pathways and the transformation that occurs for our young and returning learners. So I'll leave it there and open it up for questions and comments from Tiffany as well.
Thank you, Tiffany and Angus, for your presentation. Very well done. Questions, discussion? Councillor Butler.
I'm just wondering, with all of this that you're doing, how is it that the city of Grand Forks can better work with you or support you in what you do?
That's a great question, because it's particularly poignant in smaller communities where we really have to work with our local partners to make sure that, first of all, students know that there are good pathways that can be started here, and those pathways can be pre-college academic upgrading, and so the campus here does a tremendous amount of work on the academic upgrading. Working with community service providers on adult special ed, working with local employers on workplace training, and if the city can help us sort of facilitate that kind of dialogue. Of course, we have staff who do that, but knowing that we have the support of local government in terms of meeting our objectives. That's sort of why we're here today and opening it up for any ideas that community members have to make the campus here and our impact more vibrant. We're always asked about, well, when are you going to offer a trades program here or a diploma program? One of the top priorities for us in terms of infrastructure is bandwidth and connectivity. What we'd love to do is we'd love to get to that place where a student could log in here and take one of Tiffany's lectures, for example, if they're commuting every day, maybe in reducing that commute to maybe twice a week or 3 times a week. We've tried it, but the technology, the bandwidth just isn't there yet, and we're working with Columbia Basin Broadband to get the last mile, as it were. Things like that, any opportunities to partner on funding applications. It's great to hear the earlier presentations around. And it's true, when we have the support of local government, if we put a proposal into the Ministry of Advanced Ed for money to connect the Grand Forks campus, that's a great opportunity to have the city involved as well.
Councillor Hammond.
What has TELUS said with their fiber optic? Are they able to accommodate?
Yes. Yeah, the key thing for us, as far as I understand, that the backbone is mostly in, and it's now lighting it up, to use the terminology. I don't really know what that means, but I think it involves not just flicking switches and stuff, but actually connecting the pipes to the right place. And right now, there are parts of our 8 campus and site operation that connect very well, but those tend to be the sort of Nelson-Castlegar Trail corridor.
Right.
The next big thing for us is hooking up with what Grand Forks has done locally here. And that takes, as I understand it, some money on our part to get the right equipment so that the coupling is done properly and the systems are talking to each other. So we're getting there. I mean, if 5 years ago, it was almost an unthinkable project, but we are getting there. We have put a proposal into the province to give us some actual financial resources to do that last little bit of work. So I'm quite confident. But it's frustrating for local communities. We had a community classroom support worker lecture and class all set up. We renovated a room in Castlegar. We put some equipment in at the Grand Forks campus. And then the problem was it was dropping every 20 minutes. The signal was going dead. So you can't really have a good lecture that way. So once we get that last little bit done, I think there'll be more instructors who take advantage of that service.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm kind of wondering what kind of products you're offering. I'm sorry.
May you be able to identify yourself?
Oh, my name is Don Ferrand, Spencer Hill. I'm wondering what kind of products you're developing for the gray hairs and the no hairs, and what kind of response you're getting there. Is there any enthusiasm on that segment of the community?
Yeah, it's a great point because they're in the demographic table that I showed. And we do have a very active group right now in the Nelson-Castlegar area called Learning in Retirement. They started as a group of about 35 interested seniors, and now have grown to over 300 unruly, 300 group of people who have taken a bit of their own charge in terms of what kind of programming they'd like. But we work with them to provide a place and speakers and activities. And I'm going to be seeing Jennifer afterwards, and we have talked about how to get that same energy going in some of our smaller communities. But what it will take is probably a couple of champions and maybe working again, partnering with a local service provider, whether it's the local seniors association or something like that. But there's tremendous opportunity there for sure.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you. I look at the catalog that Silver College sends out every year, and the courses that are being offered through this campus are, in my opinion, just excellent. But of course, in order to have those programs there have to be enough people to enroll in them.
Yes.
And are there more programs canceled because of lack of enrollment than there are courses that are actually being taken, that people are registering for and taking?
Not that I'm aware of that it's a big issue in Grand Forks. I think what we find, and I'll check with Jennifer on this, but I think what we find is when we put together something that's of interest, people do in this community take advantage of it. And I know Jennifer has a kind of a community advisory to kind of provide guidance on what people are interested in, and we do that in all of our communities regardless of size. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things where we have a sort of a cutoff number, sort of a cost recovery. And some we will actually not do cost recovery, we'll do them just because it's a good idea. One of the things that we did try this summer, and we did it in the cusp as well in Caslo, is we kept our hours of operation longer into the summer, I believe. And we also expanded a bit of programming for children. And that was tremendously successful. And we were very conscious not to do it in a way that limits the ability of other groups, such as the museum, to do what they want to do in the summer months with the school kids. But we found actually that keeping the sites open longer over the summer was a positive rather than a drain on the institution. And that's good for us. And it might be that offering to other demographics and things like that are another way that we could maintain that service.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? So may I have a motion to receive the presentation from Angus Graham and Tiffany Snort from Selkirk College? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Hammond. All in favor? So carried. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
We'll now move on to our presentations from staff. First being from our Chief Financial Officer. Subject matter, property insurance, 2016 property insurance sole source. Our Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. This is a proposal to council to allow sole sourcing for the 2016 property insurance. Due to the fact that we are still working on the City Hall claim for the fire, and we're hoping to have that wrapped up by the end of this year, if not in the next month or so. And we feel it would be best to stay with our current insurer until the claim's wrapped up.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, just as an aside to that, the fact that we are dealing with about $2.2 million in claims, it would be hard pressed for us to say, thank you very much, kind of partway through before we wrap up the process and then go out for others pricing. Feels it would be prudent to stick with it this year and then seek some other pricing throughout as per our pursuit policy.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I would be, like to put forward the motion that we recommend that council waive the requirements of the purchasing policy 802-81 and allow sole sourcing for 2016 property insurance at the November 30th regular meeting of council.
May I have a second? Councillor Butler. Discussion. All in favor? So carried. Moving on again to our Chief Financial Officer. Subject matter is the write-off of uncollectible business licenses. Our Financial Officer.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. This is a housekeeping item. We review the business licenses outstanding at the end of each year and try and determine, as we've as we've described in the RFP, we assume each year if a business had a license the prior year that they are continuing business. That's not always the case. And when we go and do some follow-up at the end of the year, in a lot of cases, the businesses are no longer in existence and hadn't been in that year. So this is the case with the businesses that are included in this RFP. We've determined that they are currently not doing business in the city, and we've been unable to locate them.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to put forward a motion that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council write off uncollectible business licenses for Boundary Houseworks, Grand Forks Monuments, Kettle Valley Chiropractic, Pinkies, Quickfire Exhaust and Vent Cleaning, World Within Shops, Rest Assured Respite Care, Wizard of Paws, Lalonde Contracting, and Misty Creek Productions for the 2012, 2013, and 2014 license years at the November 30th regular meeting of Council.
May I have a second? Councillor Butler. Any discussion? Councillor Crog.
Oh, just a question. I thought that Kettle Valley Chiropractic was operating. Just down over there, next to, or just down from the Bush Bowl. Yeah, I thought they were.
And that's the name of the place?
Yes.
Mayor Conrad, I could look into that and for the November 30th before we put the final motion.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion? So carried. Our next item is for the Deputy Corporate Officer of Communications. Oh, we're reversing that one. My apologies. The next one is for our Chief Administrative Officer, and the subject matter is the City of Grand Forks Strategic Plan for 2015 to 2019. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Council has been going through a series of workshops since earlier on this year in respect to Council strategic priorities. The priorities were undertaken as part of a process where we brought in the consultant, Tracy Lawrenson. But prior to that, we actually went out and got some information from the community to see what the priorities for the community were. And Council had that information and then went into the workshop with the consultant, and the consultant actually worked us through the process where Council was able to develop their visions as a group. Within that, it was left with staff, and then we had the fire and a couple other things that slowed us up. But essentially, you have the plan before you now. And the keys to the plan that are important, and I'll go through a little bit more of the components of the plan, but the fiscal accountability, economic growth, community engagement, and the last one, there was 4 there. I got it a little bit quick for me. Was community livability. And council worked that through as a group, and they talked about through the feedback from the public that they had, what was important to them. And staff were able to put that together and then have the document before council now. So when we talked about the first item, we talked about fiscal accountability. Is council's, so we'll go back to that, please. Council said with a strong opinion that they will not sell their natural assets and infrastructure to investors. Now we reworded that too. So let's go to the other document. So as we went through this stuff, we went through all these different components of the report. We got down to the crux of the action items in here. And council said with fiscal accountability, we will not sell our natural assets and infrastructure. That was very important for council to dispel any rumors within the community or with anywhere that we were moving towards privatization or selling off to any other foreign interests in respect to our infrastructure. That was put to bed and is not an issue, and it is profoundly stated in this document that they are not doing that. So you can count on that from this term of council that they are not doing that. And I've never heard any interest of council. There's only 2 councils in British Columbia that have taken over the services to private interests with their natural infrastructure being water services, and that was, White Rock and Port Hardy, and subsequently White Rock has taken it back over for the delivery of service for water. So council wanted to explore the variable growth opportunities and present council for consideration. So we talked about this alternative energy, a solar garden, exploring those opportunities. We know that Nelson has done it, and they're now looking for people to purchase these solar panels as part of the process. Fiber optics, continue to connect other communities and organizations with regional expansions and community energy. Council does collect funding for that to develop the community energy system. Every time that we go over our carbon neutrality agreement that was signed way back in, geez, I can't remember the year, but it was way back in the early 2000s. Council made a commitment to not, or to commit to carbon neutrality, and within that, we pay ourselves $25 a ton that goes into a carbon reserve fund that will be used towards a community energy system, or for council's consideration to utilize as they see fit. You ensure the service levels align with taxation levels. So within that, council wanted to provide a continual analysis of service levels. Departments will continue to review service levels and rates. When we're doing our budget process, it was important for us to review our service levels and rates, basically to what we can afford and what we can't afford. Sometimes we get to the point where we start thinking that new is better and more is better, but it's not always the case. Every time we put in, and I'll use the sidewalk or the road analogy. If we build more sidewalks or roads, depending on the widths, we have to make passes on those to remove snow. So we sometimes, if we make them too wide, then we have to make extra passes, and that relates back to service levels. We started talking about sidewalks on both sides of the road. Can we afford to replace those? Making those decisions on the different infrastructure that we're going to implement over the next several years, putting a business case behind it. Does it make sense or doesn't it make sense? Council asking that decision, not just because it's a good idea, but does it make sense within the business model of the community? Develop a surplus policy and taxation policies to assist with service levels. So what council is going to be embarking on is not just thinking it's a good idea to raise taxes by 1% or 2%, actually having a financial analysis to determine why they're going to raise taxes and how they will raise taxes and where that funding will go. And if we have a surplus, where is that money allocated for the future of the community when it goes to the reserve fund? So for instance, our surplus right now sits at about $3.8 million. That $3.8 million we would expect to have a certain amount left in the surplus, but then the remainder of that would be reallocated off the infrastructure replacement. So, and that'll be through a formula the council will develop over with the public presentations. Continue to develop performance measures. So we're going to go to service level reviews and to meet infrastructure needs. So one of the things that we talked about with council was developing a set of performance measures so they understand why they're making decisions when they're making them. What is the impetus for that? When we're providing services, can we actually afford to deliver those services? Does it make sense? You know, we've talked a little bit about providing extra services outside of our community, but or within our community, but do we have to buy more equipment to do that? And do we have to make more investments to do that? We have a series of these things in here to develop an airport management service structure, customer service surveys, going back out to the community and asking for the community to provide us feedback on service delivery. Just do residents want to pay more for taxes to get more services? And where would they like to get those? Where would they like those services to come from? Those are just some of the examples that we'll be looking at. Ensure staffing levels are allocated to appropriately prolong the life of the asset. So what we're doing is making sure we have a balanced approach with our staffing. And you saw that in the earlier report that came to council. Was, are we living beyond our means, or do we have the cart in front of the horse? And there are some examples that we do, and we have to make some changes in our organization. Continue to enhance service delivery against similar municipalities. So making sure we know what we're doing when we're doing that, making sure that we're not just simply providing services that we think we should be providing. Let's make sure we're getting down to the service levels that we need to provide. And then beyond that, council can make those decisions. Continue to implement long-term viability of asset management plan as a living document. So we've talked a ton about asset management. We're talking about our software program, so we can capture all the information from our employees. We know that we've invested probably close to $100 million in our employees over the life of this community. And those people leave our organization and they take that intellectual knowledge with them. We're trying to harness that back into our software program. So when our employees do leave, we do have the information for the rest of the time for our community. So it's not done on the back of a napkin. It is done in a building, a service model that we can actually rely on for the future. All the history of our community when it comes to servicing and whatnot at service levels will be in that model. We talked a little bit about continuing to hold organizational workshops on communications, and there's going to be more information coming from that shortly. The Work Tech program, long-term planning in departments regardless of grants. So that's the other piece. Is important to remember that we can't always rely on the provincial and federal governments. We have to have plans that are going to be workable for our community, and that's part of the process for us. And continue to review the asset management plan. It's not just simply a document that is static and now it goes on the shelf. It's something that is reviewed every budget cycle. We have to continue to review that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Moving up to the next element of the plan. Council talked a little about financial accountability. Again, talking not about selling their natural assets. That's an important piece to have in there. And then we'll continue to proactively identify plans for infrastructure repair and replacement. So we've been doing that. We've been looking at our overall plan. We've talked about sewer expansions. We've talked about water expansions. But we have to figure out how we're going to do that. And we have to ensure that the short-term financial benefits will not override the long-term impacts. And we will consider the triple bottom line, social, environmental, and economic. So council, when they're getting their reports, staff reports will refer to those documents. Make sure that this is a strategic outcome that you're looking for. Ensure city-owned land is sold at fair market value and addresses the best overall impact of the community. They're not just simply looking to wholesale the properties. We did the Lands Development Showcase, and it's resulted in, I think we spent $15,000 to put that together, and it's resulted in, I think, $250,000 in land sales for the city. So it's proved to be a sustainable process that makes sense, and it'll enhance the community for the future. The slag pile revenue will continue to benefit the city's overall needs as directed by council. So council will determine, are they going to put that into the asset renewal plan, or are they going to leave it there and then fund asset renewal through different levels of taxation. Continue to review the tax mix. So this is an important piece. Grand Forks is so so lucky to have a diverse cross-section of industry, so it's not all a residential tax base. We've got a good base of commercial, a good base of industrial, and a good base of residential, and it's a really nice mix. Council will continue to look at that mix and look to see how those levels of taxation are appropriated. Protect the aquifer and infrastructure from external interest at all costs. So develop policies and guiding principles to protect the city's valuable infrastructure. Consider conservation education and public in the valley around this. And then further to that is build a regional water partnership group. And this has already been the discussion going on. We know we have the Kettle River watershed study, but what else are we doing to protect the water systems? What are we doing to help in our region with removal of slag in Greenwood? I mean, what's going on with that? How is that going to impact our long-term water system? What's happening at Big White, and how are the impacts of the Monashee going to play on us with global warming? So as we look at that, that's some of the discussions we'll be having with council. Develop a financial analysis that shows funds are available to consult with community members to identify priorities. So as we go out, we talk about the priorities. We know that we have a water line in the river that needs to be replaced, and we know that we have sewer treatment ponds that are filling up. But asking the community, what do you feel as though the priorities are? Do you want to see those fill up and take more risk there and ask council to pave a sidewalk? Understanding that council will have the final say, but knowing what's important to the community. We know that we have to repair that water line. We're gonna process that with a risk policy, so council will understand that risk and the community will understand the risk. But then making that decision after we understand all the different pieces associated with that. Moving on to the next area of the plan was community engagement. Council wanted to encourage residents to participate in the local government decisions and process, enhance the regional dialogue, advocacy, and collaboration, and recognize that natural amenities are valuable as regional assets. So we went through a series of things here. We're not going to go through all the action items there, but we're consistent with communications and priority decisions, opportunities to link Grand Forks to surrounding rural areas to facilitate alignment and leverage their voice. An example of that will be talking about value for money, trails enhancement linkage, lining up our strategic plans with other strategic priorities in the region, such as the regional district, the BEDC, and other areas. Cost sharing arrangements, refining business relationships. We're going to continue to work with the local educational institutions to enhance educational opportunities and programs. So again, with asset management, joint occupational health and safety, environmental operator certification program, and talking about pilot programs for students that incorporate local government. Identify and engage regarding key regional advocacy opportunities and strategies. So again, with the Kettle River watershed study and the protection. of the natural assets. And ensure government structure and recreation commissions are highly functional. Continue to look at those things, continue to look at the process. Integrated recreational planning between Grand Forks and the electoral areas. So we've been talking considerably with Rolly Russell and our other partners on what we're doing. Consider partnerships in other areas as well. Share data and information. Determine and innovative, meaningful ways to engage the public. So again, that's going to be part of the process of the survey is, so when we're engaging the public, how do you want to be engaged? Are we engaging you the proper way? Do we need to do it more electronically? Do we need to do it more paper copy? And what is it that we can do to get that information so you can get the information out to you, so you can get the information back to us? That's what council has discussed. The next piece in this with community community livability. So council will continue to mitigate the impact of deer in our community. We'll advocate for appropriate funding for our most vulnerable residents. We'll support community initiatives aligned with council's strategic priorities. We'll continue to invest in our arts and culture, sport and heritage in Grand Forks. So council said they're going to build capacity within the community. They're going to continue to enforce the deer feeding bylaw. They're going to collaborate with grassroots organizations to better understand the needs of the community and work with groups to find solutions where possible. And work with fee-for-service providers to leverage and provide more effective services. So one of the key pieces was around the deer feeding bylaw. And council really struggled with that. And at the end of that conversation, they said they want to continue on with that because that is continuing to evolve. There has been no decisions around that, but they're continuing to discuss it and more information coming. Working very closely with the provincial government and partners throughout the Okanagan and in our region and throughout the rest of British Columbia, as a matter of fact, to talk about some of the issues that are surrounding deer. We talked a little bit about the similar challenges that we face within other communities, but working with the grassroots organizations to figure out how council can help them, not necessarily with finances, but also with other leveraging their opportunities with other resources. The next section was economic growth. So council said they would foster an a vibrant economic development. We're open yet disciplined in land development decisions, and we recognize the importance of a healthy downtown core. So council talked about continuing to foster relationships that support economic development in every capacity, including environmental, financial, and social sustainability. Ensure economic development is consistent with deep regard for natural environment. Council didn't want to see just box stores going up with neon signs. We know that neon is traditional in a lot of ways, but they just didn't want to see the traditional box development in our community. And making sure the environment was considered in that process. We've talked a little bit about solar. We've talked a lot about reduction of water consumption. We've talked about rain barrels and other opportunities that exist. Support healthy growth and retention of existing businesses. Ensure alignment between our economic development initiatives and financial policies. Work to reduce red tape. Build a foundation that continues to promote the commitment to a diverse cross-section of industry, business, and people. Consider initiatives in sustainable development on Grand Forks owned land, and identify economic development linkages. So when we talk about the actions in here, council is going to be continuing to work with the outside agencies, Community Futures, making sure that staff is continuing to bring back that information before the public, and ensuring that all development is in line with the visions of including guiding principles of the SCP, which is our sustainable community plan, which our residents had a considerable amount of input on. Wayfinding signage for the downtown, establishing a new connection with businesses and biz license process. There's a considerable list here of action items that are identified in here, and we're going to be continuing to work on those. And what's going to happen is staff is going to be providing the reports, as you see them today on the agenda, that will have the linkage between the strategic plan and why we're doing this. Now, keeping in mind that staff operates 70% on legislative requirements, this is 30% of our workload. The other 70% is legislative and mandated facing the services that we provide. This is not, staff isn't going to stop doing all of our legislative pieces because we must meet those. It's not optional. This is the nice to have. Our budget items will align with this. So when we're presenting the budget, it will align with these priorities. And council will consider that because council will have to align the funding that they're going to provide in the through taxation and rate increases to this. So as we do this, we're going to take kind of a balanced approach to this to make sure that we're not asking council to invest considerable money. We want to leverage outside opportunities as much as we can. And can we go on to a little bit further, Sarah? Or is it?
That's it.
So the important piece to understand for us as for staff working with this document is staff does bring this part and bring this forward to council, and council gets a checklist on this to see how we're doing on this and the opportunity to review and revise this. The important thing for the community is to know is what do these pieces mean? Are we going to continually talk about these? And council wants to engage the public and find out what their thoughts are on this. Is it definitive in a lot of ways? No, we're not saying that we're going to replace a specific road or a specific water line, because we know that the bar is continually being moved on us with the provincial and federal government, with elections and whatnot. But we do know that we have the processes in place to be successful. And council will continue to see this, just like you're going to see the corporate communications policy that's coming forward aligns definitely with this. Everything that we do will speak about aligning with council's values and process to make sure that it meets the needs as council heard from the community and as council provide direction to our staff. So, Mr. Mayor, that's the quick overview of the document. I mean, I hate to summarize it in such a short term, but it did take a lot of work for our organization to get there. And we're going to be reporting back on this once a year. Council's going to be checking in on it once a year. And we're going to continue to be talking about it on every staff report that we have, because council feels so that aligns with strategic priorities. Because when the council comes forward, when the member of council says, why is this before us? We'll say because you asked for it. So there you go, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So may I have a motion on the recommendation? Council to adopt the 2015-2019 strategic plan at the November 30th, 2015 regular meeting. Councilor Thompson, Councilor Hammond. Any discussion, Councilor Butler?
Yeah, I just want to say, after going through this now a few times, we've seen this presentation, it is starting to make more sense. There's a lot of really good things in the plan. I mean, it's not, one councilor's not going to agree with everything in it because we've all had input and we're not going to disagree with everything. So I think it is a good overview. I would like to have seen a few more definitive things in there to aim at. I'm also wondering if in the future council maybe could have more involvement of the actual nuts and bolts of putting the plan together, rather than having a consultant take our ideas and form them. I think maybe if council had been more involved in forming the actual document, we might have owned it a bit more, and maybe even be able to present it ourselves. So maybe as we go through in the next couple of years and go over it, maybe we'll get a bit more clear on what some of those definitive ideas are that we can proceed on.
Thank you. Any other questions or? The lady in the second room.
Donna Samnoff, thank you. To me as a resident, and I'm sure to other residents, we're excited, and this is an important plan because we know this is this council's commitment for what they want to focus on for the next few years. I'm not wanting to rush through it. There's a few questions on different parts, and I'm hoping like this is the chance that we have to talk about it. So can I ask a few short questions, because there's so many pages that were just presented?
Yes, as long as they're short.
Okay, the first one is in the first section, it says that the next step will be to set regular meetings to review the strategic priorities, these priorities, and to identify any changes that need to be made. So is this something that would be done once a year then, likely, and it would be reviewed to see if this is still how council wishes to proceed? Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor. The process is, because it's such a big document, council will review this in the budget process, and the presentations will be aligned with that. So it'll be there will be considerable dialogue on this when staff are presenting their actions and their course of their plans for the year. The review component of that will also be done with council once a year, where it'll be come forward to council at a committee of the whole meeting, where then council will then talk about how they feel like this is being addressed, and what items are there that that may come up that that is more strategically important at this time, and they would like to basically pull something out and put something else in. So things change all the time for us, and we know that the federal government and provincial government may all of a sudden align funding that will say that we've now made $200 million available for something like this, and then we'll have to readjust the schedule of events.
Next. Okay,
I'd like to say that I appreciate the inclusion relating to water and protecting our water utility and keeping it public. I wanted to mention that a previous councillor had told me that he was approached by someone who would be interested in taking over our utility. So it's great that this council has a sense of what direction they want to go, and I appreciate that as a resident. When I read this, as someone with an English background, I'm seeing we will not sell our natural assets and infrastructure. When I hear natural assets, I'm thinking land as well as water. So I'm wondering, is there going to be definitions in here of what you're referring to specifically for clarity?
Mr. Mayor, on services that you provide, you're required by legislation to move out to public consultation before you divest yourself of a utility or anything along those lines. So that is established already by law. When we talk about natural assets, there are certain components of natural assets that council doesn't own. You don't own the animals that live on those lands. You don't own the bugs. You don't own you control the use of the land, but you don't control the consumption of that land. That's something that the provincial government controls. So when we talk about properties that we own, it is outlined in there, and it is outlined in the Lands Development Showcase. And council does come to a meeting of council before they are going to divest themselves of a piece of property. So council does get that opportunity to consider that. And council's already suggested that they are in the plan that they're going to consider the triple bottom line before they sell a piece of property. Is that?
It's just that it says we will not sell our natural assets. And I thought, oh, I understand the water utility, but could someone interpret that as land? Maybe changing the wording. I was concerned that it might be interpreted that the city is saying it's not going to sell its land, or in that first page on page 56. That, just for clarity of what your intention is.
I think it's more, I think council is talking about the key elements of that are things that are, water was the biggest focus. Okay. And council holds the right to determine anything that they do sell. So if they feel as though it's natural or an asset that they don't want to sell, they would simply speak to that. So if if the wording is confusing, council can make the determination to remove a word or insert a word. That's the button.
Just further on that, I'm wondering with asset management, as we proceed with it, as other communities have done, what are the type of things that they do start to classify as natural assets? We know that other communities have classified their aquifer as a natural asset. What other type of things do they usually classify?
Trees, plants.
Parks.
Well, the parks are considered to be community property. Air.
Lakes.
Yeah, lakes. Natural being, yeah, I'd say that would be it. I mean, if there was, for instance, a natural asset being a tree, but if council owns a piece of property that had a forest on it, that they had a logging license on, or license for tenure for extraction of that wood, that would come to the community to talk about that process and how that would be undertaken. But we don't have that right now. So when we're talking about natural, though, it's around that. Does that help in that respect? A linear asset, and maybe it's easier to classify in our linear assets or non-linear assets, are our roads, our sewage treatment plant system, our vehicles. Those are the things, and we have an asset disposal policy for dealing with that. So once it's exhausted its life expectancy, and we take our 1975 pickup and we go to sell it, we follow an asset disposal policy in that respect.
Councillor Hammond and Councillor Butter.
Maybe natural assets should be reworded to infrastructure.
It does say assets and infrastructure. I think
Natural assets and infrastructure. So what were you reading?
It's, show you the page, it's the first one, so where you have your introduction here. It's that first line under fiscal accountability, that's the one
that wording is to be changed.
Okay.
So what we had there, that's just a preamble that we
Natural
had. The actual end document is the final piece, but that one will line up with the natural assets and infrastructure to foreign interest, because they said it's not to foreign interest. Council said, well, because the council dialogued with that one, they said, well, foreign interests. What about local interests? What if somebody locally want to buy our water system? You know, not that they're selling the water system. I want to make sure that I predispose that that has not ever been discussed with council. Just so you know, it has not been discussed, that has ever been offered, and I don't want that to come up. But they did say any interests that they had, so it doesn't have to be for it.
Councilor Butler.
I'm just curious with a lot of, there's so many things on here that I think sometimes maybe they could conflict with each other. So if something was brought before council that was, you know, good economically, yet it conflicted with our environmental standards, how would we resolve that within this plan?
So, Mr. Mayor, if it's, and there's so many variables to that, it would be through dialogue. Council would then hold the decision, and through the democratic process where council would determine if they're going to vote to do it or not. And the legislative processes that stand before us through the federal government and provincial government. So if there's ever a conflict with an item that the councillor has, they have the opportunity to raise that during discussion, and then council gets to discuss it according to the procedure bylaw to talk about how they want to handle it.
This was mentioned earlier that it was always available for review.
Yes.
For changes. Yeah, any question?
On page 65, it says, better identify issues prior to catastrophic failure, use work tech for this. What is work tech?
So WorkTech is our software that we have that has been capturing all of our intellectual data from our community. So from all of our workforce, every job that we do will go into WorkTech, and it'll measure our performance on how we're doing. So for instance, if we deploy our crew out to do the work, we can actually measure how much time, how much equipment, how many hours, how many tons of carbon we created to do that, and what were the impacts to our community, and should we be doing this or not? And measuring and reporting back to council that says we should not be doing this, or we cannot afford to do it this way. And council can measure that and determine the services they would like to provide.
You have very many more questions.
Just two more.
Because I might have to request if you put them in writing.
So
Then go ahead.
on page 66, you referred to the pilot program for students transitioning out of high school. Is that something that would go with Selkirk, or what was that?
Through Selkirk, yes, through Selkirk.
What is it? in a
So we've been
sentence?
talking about different things that we do in local government that would be interesting for students to come out, talking about water treatment, water distribution, sewage treatment, sewage distribution, how we discharge into the river, those types of programs. So we know, like the folks from Selkirk talked about, is what does the pathway look like for students? And that cooperative piece with us and coming to know that it's a noble profession to work in public works or in water or in roads, and they could come and learn how to do that.
Sounds good. On the last page 68, there's two comments there. Marketing the community to a larger, more diverse audience. I'm understanding that would mean investing some money to market. And the next comment, investigate overseas opportunities exchange with sister city. Is that an existing city, or are you looking at having more sister cities in certain countries? Or?
So there's a provincial program right now that is out there where they have overseas representatives in the 4 key markets. Right now are India, South Korea, China, and Japan, and they have representatives there that will share our information. And when we do that, we'll continue to investigate the viability of opportunities that would exist, for instance, anybody that's looking to invest into our community as well. So, and the sister city piece, I believe there is a sister city with Germany, and to resurrect that and talk a little bit more about that, exposing our market, exposing us to a more diverse market that way. So not just looking at those 4 key pieces, but also looking at leveraging that sister city component as well. I don't think we can have more sister cities. I don't know. I don't know what that means. I don't know that I think you have one that's very similar to you in another country that you align yourself with.
That is just following up. My understanding is with sister cities, sometimes you'll have youth or certain professions visiting the other country, and they will travel as a group. So there might be an opportunity maybe for Selkirk to get involved, and people would learn about Grand Forks and we could learn from them. My understanding is it could involve exchanges.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for your answers.
Are there any other questions?
There's one quick comment.
Councillor Butler.
I just want to say thank you, Donna, for being interested in the strategic plan, and other people that have come out today to hear it, or people that are watching online. I think it's important that the community stay involved and stay connected with what council is doing and understand and have their input. And as we go into our communications policy here next, and we've been talking about how do we better engage the community, and I think this is a really great opportunity for the community to come and ask questions, and that's something that council should really encourage. So thank you.
So we have a question on the table. All in favor?
More discussions?
More discussion? Lady in the second.
Gloria Cook. This is such an extensive, large piece to look through and even ask questions about. I have actually lots, but can the public ask questions in the future about some of these past presentations and issues that we look at that are not necessarily on an agenda, but have been discussed in the, like now, coming out of a piece like this? Can we continue to ask questions on these things?
I would say absolutely, because it's in there. Community input, involvement, it's right in the document, so definitely, the voice can be put forward.
So at a meeting like this?
A committee of the
At
whole.
the committee of the whole meeting,
Yes.
yes, exactly. Future meetings, if you have questions on this, sure.
Okay, thank you.
So again, the question on the table, all in favor? So carried.
Your worship, do we have a short recess?
Sure. We'll take a brief recess. I call this meeting back to order. Our next item on the agenda is from our Deputy Corporate Officer Communications. Subject matter is the communications policy and procedures.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council has identified improving communications as a key strategic priority, which you just saw as our CAO reviewed this strategic plan with the public and council. The draft communications policy and procedures include suggestions for guiding principles, recommendations to enhance communication procedures and processes to facilitate council members' community outreach, to adopt a more strategic approach to council communications, and to ensure successful internal and external communications. 9 guiding principles were identified that will be used to help guide decisions and communications for the organization. And I'll just quickly review those so that you have a good idea of how decisions will be made around communications and what strategies will be put into place. So ensure the city's messages are communicated in a clear, relevant, and proactive manner that is consistent throughout the organization. Every member of council and staff has a role to play in assisting the city to listen to citizens, incorporate feedback, and communicate its message. Provide accurate, relevant, and timely information to target select audiences with appealing, positive, open, and honest information. Offer opportunities for two-way communications and continuous dialogue to the mutual benefit of the city and its citizens and stakeholders. Be proactive in seeking opportunities to inform and engage key stakeholders, residents, businesses, community groups, and the media using a wide range of communication strategies, tools, and channels. Increase awareness about the role of the City of Grand Forks and programs and services. Seek to build trust, increase understanding, and reduce misinformation. Ensure all communications, both internal and external, are respectful, recognizing and seeking to understand different perspectives, and allocate the adequate and or necessary resources, both financial and human, to implement communications as identified and approved. There are key areas for consideration, and those would include message content, media relations, external communications, internal communications, online, which would be web and social media, community engagement, committees, resources, and evaluation. So there are more in-depth descriptions in the policy and then the procedures. So the policy will dictate the why, and the procedures will speak about how the organization will implement communications around all of these key areas. Thank you.
Thank you. So may I have a motion for the recommendation to receive the draft communications policies and procedures and further recommend council to adopt communications policy and procedures at the November 30th, 2015 regular meeting? Councilor Thompson, discussion. Councilor Thompson.
Yes, I would just like to recommend a couple of changes. I see that throughout the document in varying places that we've got the word appealing, and I would like to recommend that that be deleted for the simple reason that what's appealing to me may not be appealing to you, and I think that leaves us open to interpretation. And one other on page 43, where the message content, and again, I would like to see appealing, which is there, be replaced by the word honest. And having said that, those are the only significant recommendations as to change that I would like to include as an amendment to the motion, or as part of the motion.
Councilor Butler. Thank you.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with your amendments there. I think there's a lot of really good things included in this document, one specifically being the statement that information is the lever that people need to hold the city accountable and to ensure transparency in participative and empowering processes I think it's the democratic right of the people to be able to come to the city and ask questions and get timely answers and specific answers, that they shouldn't have to go through freedom of information requests to have access to the information that is rightfully theirs as citizens of Grand Forks. I noticed within the policy, I found it quite long, and there are some things that seem to be repeated a couple of times. Part of good communications, I think, is being concise, and I was hoping that maybe we could shrink this down a bit and just tighten it up a little bit so it isn't quite as long. I don't know if that would be difficult for staff or not.
Clarification.
Thanks, Mayor Conrad. If you take a closer look, the first, I think there are 1, 2, 3, 4 and a bit pages, which are the actual policy. The following document is the procedures. So that is the how we will implement the communications plan. And so it is, and would be expected to be a little bit longer in length with a lot of detail about how we will implement the strategy, both from a staff perspective and a council perspective.
So will we deal with the wording change, the housekeeping, or will we actually put a motion on that?
We can housekeep them and bring them to the
Exactly.
meeting when
Get what other changes are done, exactly. Councilor Butler.
Just one more point I wanted clarified. With presenting a unified opinion to the public of the city's official stance, I think that's important. But I wouldn't want to see that done at the compromise of freedom of speech. I think, and I'm not sure, but in the past, employees were allowed to speak openly with the media and give their own personal opinions, and councillors as well, to be able to speak openly about their own personal opinions without representing the city and not infringing on their rights as individuals to freedom of speech. I would hope that this policy would not hinder the ability of individuals to speak their mind.
Garcia.
Mr. Mayor, in respect to freedom of speech, we don't regulate that, but when a person is in employment with the city and council passes a policy or a bylaw, we don't, as staff members, get to have our opinion in the public and issue that opinion. Council makes a decision. We are then expected to follow that decision. You are our employer. We don't judge you in the media. We don't critique you in the media. And we definitely do not make statements against your decisions in the media. Once a democratic process has been exercised and council votes on it, and it's part of a plan, we then execute. We are faceless and communicationless when it comes to those decisions. So if we like the fact that you want to paint, you decide to paint all the fire hydrants purple, and we don't like that, we are not going to sit in the media and say, well, we think that is a profoundly not good idea. It's your prerogative to make those decisions. We will not judge you, and we will not have the ability to have freedom of speech on you when it comes to our employment. So when it comes to decisions of our employer, we will not do that. As a member of the community and people that pay taxes in that community, they can have their opinions on certain things, but they shouldn't be having opinions on decisions that you've made as your employer. Because not ever have I been in an organization where the employer gets to be judged by the subordinates and then get to have them critiqued in the public. Actually, we just saw a situation on Facebook in Kelowna where the employee was terminated from their employment for putting up negative comments about their employer on the website. It is not their privilege to be able to critique their employer in the public eye. And we will not do that. So our staff will not have the privilege of having to critique you in the public.
Any other questions? Gentleman in the back.
Les Johnson. Just from a purely technical point of view, as I do these shows and I see your presentations, which are your communications to the public, maybe somebody could invest some time into training staff, getting staff trained on what actually, what works and what doesn't, because presentations I see up there on the screen, which are dense with text, may work when they're printed or when you're standing right next to the screen. But people who are looking at it from back here can't read that text. And people who are looking at it from the point of view of on screen or at home or on cable TV, they can't read most of that text either. So I'd say, learn how to do PowerPoints better, that's all. Period, simple.
Thank you. Any other discussions? Councillor Thompson?
I just want to say thank you very much for that policy. It's excellent. And certainly going to give all of us the ability to hopefully, and in my case in particular, keep my foot out of my mouth.
So all in favor of the question on the table? So carried. Opposed, Councillor Butler? Are you questioning on this?
Yeah,
Because
this is
it's-
just a comment about it, about policy.
I'll allow you one because
Thank
we've
you.
already asked her any questions and you didn't raise your hand, so.
I tried. Regarding message content, so I see that the council members and staff, they will get a document that will help them be well informed so that it will be easier for them to speak with, from an informed place. But I suspect that they would have their own wording, but they would be able to, it sounds like there's efforts to have people be really well informed so that they can share the information well. And obviously, if they're not clear on something, they could consult with someone. Would it be the CAO? Is that my understanding and your understanding as well as the council?
Mr. Mayor, if there's a question and there's questions regarding, say for instance, a decision of council and there has to be a media release prepared, I assume this is what you're talking about? Or is this just an internal sharing that council passes a resolution to implement this bylaw? No. When it comes to a media relation piece, that's a different component to this.
This is the section 2.3 on page 43, so that you know. So it's those paragraphs and it's talking about the briefing notes. So I thought that that's one way that all of council and everyone is in clear understanding, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, through you to another staff member, Ms. Minton.
Communications officer.
So briefing notes are prepared and distributed so that the factual information is clear to everybody. Okay?
And if a member has questions, who does council go to for any clarification?
Well, I think that's a multi-pronged question. Because if council has any questions regarding the press release of the information, the mayor is going to have that, and we're going to develop that for the mayor to put out that information. The mayor is a spokesperson for the organization. It doesn't prohibit council from speaking to it, but council, we need to be able to share the same information. So if the mayor is speaking to an item and says that this is the decision of the council, the democratic position of the council was this, that's the piece that he'll be speaking to. So if he needs clarity on that, it will be back in the information that helped him make the decision, or coming to me or the staff person to be able to say to me, what is going on with this decision? Did we misunderstand something?
I anticipate that if council feels well informed, they'll feel comfortable describing what they're doing. So it sounds like you're making efforts for that, and that's great. And I wanted to say thank you for letting me speak, because I understand this question period and this whole meeting is about, communication and everything, and more understanding in the community. It sounds like you're working towards that, and that will build bridges in the community, bring us more connected with each other. So thank you.
Thank you for your involvement. Okay, we're now going to move on to our monthly highlight reports from the department managers. Starting with our chief financial officer.
Mr. Mayor, so
We just want to receive.
if you want to receive them, I'd be happy to answer questions as it relates to.
Also, the motion will be to receive the monthly activity reports. May I have a motion? Councillor Butler, Councillor Thompson, discussion, questions, Councillor Butler.
On the first one, I'm just wondering what EOC claims we had from the summer?
Mr. Mayor, we had, through the Emergency Operations Center, we have claims that we'll be claiming back from the provincial government related to fire department costs, for engine costs, for staff costs, and Roxanne, our chief financial officer, has been working on that to make sure that we're able to recover those costs.
Any other questions? Councilor Butler.
Somebody else can go first if it's got one. So this is for Manager of Development and Engineering. They've commenced the survey and design options for the East Reservoir Structure Study and commenced the survey and design options for the UV disinfection. I was just hoping you could elaborate a bit on those 2 points.
Director of Development Engineering, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Those are 2 projects that were approved by council in the 2015 budget. The East Reservoir Structure Study was something that Interior Health had originally suggested that we put in our long-term strategic planning. The UV disinfection is at the wastewater treatment plant, and we received a grant for that.
So what have you done to commence the study is what I'm wondering.
We've had a survey completed, and the survey went back to the consulting firm to come up with the options for the structure. And the same thing with the UV disinfection. We completed a survey of the grounds.
So, was that survey done by staff, and what consulting firm are we using for it?
The survey was completed by a local surveyor, and Urban Systems is the consultant.
Any other questions? All in favor of the motion on the table? So carried. We move on now to our proposed bylaws for discussion. And the first one is from our Manager of Development and Engineering Services. And the subject matter is to amend the current zoning bylaw by rezoning property located at 6401 Highway number 3 from the current TC, which is Tourist Commercial Zone, to HC, which is Highway Commercial Zone.
So we received a rezoning application for 6401 Highway 3, which is legally described as Lot 3, District Lot 653, Plan 3072 SDYD. And that's, located right there. So the property is currently zoned as tourist commercial, and the permitted uses are hotels, inns, recreational businesses, campgrounds, tourist facilities, retail, restaurants, and convenience stores, including gas bars. So the applicant is proposing to rezone the property to highway commercial, which allows for a whole bunch more uses than the tourist commercial. It's in line with our sustainable community plan, and he would like to use the property for automobile sales and parts and supply. He currently has 2 businesses that are located on the property, but they're not permitted uses as of right now.
So then he would be.
Pardon me?
He would be compliant.
Yes, yeah. So that's just another aerial view of the property, and that's the zoning. Where is that?
It's right where that yellow former gas station was.
Right beside where Kootenai car care is?
Oh, okay, yes.
That's the sustainable community plan designation. And that's the, just a blurb out of the sustainable community plan.
Obviously, we created a broader tax base.
Yes.
This, and if I could add, this is why you'll see this year in the plan for the manager's department is they want to redo the zoning bylaws so we can get the public consultation, and they're going to clean up some of these things, and also to not have to do spot zoning, because we keep getting these zoning requests, and what we want to be able to do is consolidate that, and that's why there's a recommendation that you review your zoning bylaw every 5 years or so to make sure that it's current with the needs of your community. Our zoning bylaw goes back to 1999, and what's happened is we've slowly seen the community morph their businesses into things that are non-compliant, and this is how we can clean those up, but then create a process that'll allow us to not be into a position where council is always seeing these types of things before you.
So in other words, that yellow building that was there before was not conforming.
Well, before the zoning bylaw came into effect, it actually used to be a service station.
And it was,
And it conformed, it conformed at that time, and then we brought the new bylaw in, and then it didn't conform anymore.
And the other thing is going to be looking for densities or changes down there. You're right along the Kettle River, and what happens in there is there's septic systems only, and they have a big impact. For instance, if you have a hotel on there, it can have an impact, considerable impact during peak season on the river. The other thing to consider too is the provision of water services. We do not have water or sewer out there, and we have to look at that as part of our phasing plan, as we talked about in strategic priorities. Is how are we going to do this? It's going to take quite a bit of consultation to get the water out there and some funding.
so what kind of, is this gonna be a broader spectrum? Then if we're going highway commercial now, will we be obligated in our SCP to provide those services?
No, there'll be something, Mr. Mayor, that we'll be providing through, almost like we talked about with the Ruckles sewer phasing. We want to just provide a high level plan to how we can get there. So we're moving in that direction. Should the provincial or federal government provide some funding to us that's consistent with our asset management planning, then we can move to that. But we won't be expected to do anything because they're developing it, if they can conform, as is where is.
Okay. Well, maybe I should redirect that question is, because they're on septic and wells, depending, do we have any guidelines under our policies or bylaws where they can only do so much as far as the size of the building?
Well, only if they subdivide.
So there would be some limitations on them. It's just the septic fields would have to be of a certain size, the water capacity.
In other words, if you put a hotel up there, a three-story hotel, I mean, you would never be able to do that.
No, it wouldn't be able to get the firefighting capacity there. And the other challenges would be the septic system, which kind of goes away from the Kettle River Valley or the Kettle River study principles with the expectation, how do we protect? And that comes back to our council saying the triple bottom line is here. And what you would see from Sasha then is a report that would say, well, considering the triple bottom line, this is failing considerably on the environmental component because the phosphorus loading potential from the laundry system.
Yeah, so we do have guidelines.
Yeah.
Councillor Hammond.
Is this privately owned land or is it city land?
Private. It's private. Yeah, private.
Did Fortis used to be in that?
No, Fortis is further down the highway.
Okay.
Councillor Brock.
Yeah, it's almost looked abandoned for years. There's all kinds of weird stuff back there in the way of scrap and garbage and stuff, and it would be nice to see it all cleaned up.
Well, it looks a lot different now than it does in the photo because he's got a car lot on there.
Is he not running a container company there right now? Container rentals?
You know, what's there right now is the, in the yellow building is the Hog and Suds.
Okay.
And that shed that you see in the back, it's been renovated, they put siding on it, and there's a tire change business that's looking to go in there.
And then the car lot is.
And the car lot would be in the, in that empty area there.
Councillor Butler.
I know Donna has one more question, but I just wanted to put forward the motion, which it isn't on the table yet, is it? That the Committee of the Whole recommends to Council to direct staff to draft the appropriate amendment bylaw and proceed with notification to surrounding property owners, publish notice in 2 consecutive issues of the Grand Forks Gazette and hold a public hearing in accordance with the Local Government Act.
Second. And we'll move on with more discussion. Maybe in the second round.
Okay, from reading this, my understanding is they're planning to put in a car wash. And from reading the about our aquifer in eastern Grand Forks, the aquifer feeds the river. They're right by the river, and I would guess they would be taking more water out of the well there. And so there could be an effect on the river. I don't know how much water they would be using. And also the question is, would all that additional water go into their septic system? So just something to be thinking about that way, environmentally.
I'm sure engineering is looking at that. And
He hasn't specifically said that he's going to put a car wash in, it's just, it's a permitted use. Right now, he just wants to make that conforming.
Conforming.
Yeah.
It's gonna meet the terms. Right now, it doesn't conform.
Exactly. Yeah, so it'll be conforming with the rest of the property.
Just a comment, there are a whole list of uses that are so-called permitted then if this changes. There's a hotel, a car wash, whatever else there, and all on septic at this time.
Just to help clarify that, there would be no approval from council on a development permit on expansion of hotels or anything like that. Council would get that privilege to speak to the development permit. If they were to come forward and say, so now we want to put this in as a hotel, they would have to provide such extensive water or firefighting requirements that they would have to upgrade the water main. Probably, if I'm gonna guess, just on a hotel, they'd have to put in an 8-inch water main all the way down the highway with a series of fire hydrants. They may even have to upgrade the reservoir to expand on the size of the reservoir so there'd be more firefighting capacity. Then there would have to be a closed sewage system put in because the Ministry of Health Interior Health would come in and they would have their recommendations. Further to that, the building codes would have to be met. And further to that, all of our engineering expectations beyond that would have to be met. Further, and even Ministry of Transportation expectations, just on a highway, on a hotel. So the uses are there, and it could happen in the future. Somebody might invest $5 million in infrastructure to build a hotel, but they couldn't do it without first upgrading and fixing all those deficiencies.
Okay, but would you want that then? If that person did that, for example, would that be still a good use for that area along the river as well?
It might very well be. I mean,
Well, that's the
at the moment, right now, there's a lot of car businesses, sort
But it would still have to come to council
Yeah.
decision. And through our policies and the restrictions and building codes and public input, there's so many steps along the way before that actually, it doesn't just happen like that.
So is it wise to open up
And it has
this,
to go to a public hearing as
Yes.
which was stated.
wise to open up this or something, kind of uses?
Yeah, it's also in the development permit area, so the application would have to come to council for a decision anyway. And because this is within 800 meters of the highway, the bylaw would have to be approved by Ministry of Transportation.
So do we have any other questions or discussions?
The summary page that was up there, is it in here? I couldn't find it. Is it on the page? That was presented about the difference between what's it zoned at right now and what things it's for. Which page is it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's in the report.
What page?
It is page 103 and 105 and on.
So unless there's any other questions or discussion, we have a question on the table, all in favor? So carried. Moving along to our information items. Yeah, we have our ladder truck funding options and the recommendations that we received for discussion, the information regarding the ladder trucks funding options. Second. Do I have a second? Councilor Crowe. Discussion. Councilor Crowe. Councilor Thompson after Councilor Crowe.
Well, she made it.
Okay, all right.
Having read the document and looking at the two options, I'm inclined to support the flat parcel tax. I think that's a fairer way of recouping the costs. I like the idea of paying and using our own funds to pay at least 50% of the purchase. But looking at the options of going through MFA and well, we would probably be going through MFA anyway, but to recoup the repayments through property taxes, it's very, very unfair and in particular to our industries. So that's just my comment on the discussion here.
Councilor Carter.
Yeah, I believe using a combination of borrowing and our own funds to finance it is probably the best option. I just had, and I'm again looking at the just straight flat parcel tax, and we've got estimates that it'd be about $24.50 per year. And the only other, I had a question. It shows to the right, and I'm not sure what page I'm on. It's highlighted, page 113. And it's got, it says average tax year, 5 years, 1522. Is that based on that average 146,000? So through you, if I could ask that. 1522 up there.
Yes, Mayor Conrad, it is. The 1522 would be based on the average residential assessment.
So then larger houses would pay more and smaller houses would pay less, which does not seem to be the fairest way to do it, as everyone is benefiting from the service.
It does. The larger houses, the higher property taxes.
Councilor Butler.
But they're paying for the same truck.
Couple questions. From reading it, I thought staff was recommending that we fund it through property taxes. I remember reading that there was considerable staff time and complications regarding doing property taxes. It was a lot, or sorry, parcel tax. It was a lot more involved. If staff could just comment on that.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, the parcel tax piece does take a considerable administrative time. But one of the things that we have to be cognizant of is our overall taxation rates that we have. This is a time-derated process. It's hard to take off, after 5 years, this is over. If we have this go on the tax rates, it lives forever, more or less. It's hard we can roll back the tax rate a little bit, but this one is a definitive timeline. Somebody could come in and say, can I pay my $125 now? And then have that taken off. That would be an option, wouldn't it, Roxanne? Yeah, you could actually pay for it up front and have it all done at one point. But there is considerable administrative time with that and with the parcel tax. We have to meet the legislative requirements around that. So, staff is, Roxanne, the Chief Financial Officer, came to me and talked to me considerably about this. And I said, we need to put it before council to see what what council's opinion is on this. Because when we brought this forward, the regional district hadn't brought forward the $350,000 that they were putting towards our truck. It was originally going to be $51 a year for 5 years, and now it's down to half. Councillor Krog was one of the councillors, I think, had the motion for us at the time to say, we want to see what options are there for us. Could we what happens if we just pay for it? What happens if we did a combination of a couple of things? And this is why it's before you. So there's a whole bunch of different formulas that can happen here, but the Chief Financial Officer's got probably the most palatable piece of $24 a property being equal for everybody. She didn't want to make that recommendation, and she's probably cringing right now because I'm suggesting that the flat tax or the parcel tax is the way to go, because it is the way to go.
But if I understand this right, the 1522 is still only 5 years.
Yes, if you did it based on assessment, on those average assessments, but if you did it on a flat.
Look what you're doing to industry.
What if we did it flat? It would be based on these ones, right, Roxanne? It would everybody would pay $24. But if we did it based on assessments, the industry is going to pay $5,000 a year for 5 years.
That's on an average house with a value of 146,000. So we have properties in town that are a lot less, and we have properties in town that are a lot more. So I looked at it like, yes, the property's worth more, but when it comes to a fire, is there really a difference? We're paying for a fire truck, not something else, so flat is probably.
Plus, when you say a parcel, it always includes land parcels.
That's right. And further to that, a lot of people that own the land will work at the industry. So there's a kind of a, it's a bit of a trade-off. So when you're saying that which one is more valuable to protect, their jobs, which pay the taxes on the homes that pay to the community, which also the industry is paying taxation into the community. So I think Councillor Crow's point is correct.
Plus, the higher price residences won't make up for the lower price. Probably. Councillor Butler.
I just have to bring something up because I'm sure someone out there will. I remember when the fire truck idea was being introduced and brought before council last year, it was mentioned that one of the main reasons why we needed such a long ladder truck was to reach the top of the smokestack or to reach the top of Silver Kettle. These larger buildings were the ones that required this expensive truck. So I imagine some people out there might say, well, then maybe they should bear a little bit more of the cost for it because my small home doesn't require such a large fancy truck.
Businesses are paying more.
Well, if we went to this model, this is the one model. If we go to this model, everybody just across the community is going to pay their $24.51 a year. If we go to this one on assessment, then we start talking, what Councilor Butler pointed out, is saying that, well, industry should bear the burden. And one of the things we have to consider is how much can they bear? And the reality of it for our community is the rescue truck is a multiple provides, it's multidimensional. And the fire chief was talking about that in his presentation as well, that it does river rescues, it can do all kinds of rescues in a lot of ways when we're having flooding and other things. So yeah, it is a requirement for us to have it to keep the firefighting costs down and the insurance rates down. That's the key to this is the FUS, which is a fire underwriter survey expectations for us to keep the thresholds at a palatable point for our community. So there is a couple options before you. So
where are we with this now? Because we're only receiving this for discussion.
Yeah, it's going to come to you as part of the financial plan. So we wanted you to have a discussion on it today because it's something that the council before made the decision to purchase the truck, and continuing body of council now is going to be allocating how it's going to be funded.
Thanks.
Councillor Thompson.
They used her credit card now.
But we got air miles.
You got air miles?
As a former treasurer and collector, I can certainly sympathize with staff position on the flat tax, parcel tax. But having said that, back in the day when BC Assessment Authority decided that each vacant parcel of land, so if a person owned for lot 1, 2, 3, and 4, and their homestead on lots 2 and 3, lots 1 and lots 4 got individually taxed, and there was a parcel tax at that time that we levied. And so I had people phoning me up saying, well, what did I do to tick you off that I'm getting? And so people had to consolidate their properties, which they did. So Roxanne, you don't have quite as many as to
Councillor Allen.
My neighbor sits with one house, but she's got 3 different properties. She'd get taxed 3 times on that, on a flat rate. Mind you, she'd get taxed on it on assessment anyway, but it would come to that amount of money. But that's I think rare. But I think the flat tax, I'm not so sure that it's totally equitable. I think it's the easiest and the most palatable, and it can be ended at 5 years, the easiest.
They're both different.
Just a quick question before Councillor Crog. Looking at these 2 scenarios, either one will meet the requirements financially.
To fund the vehicle, yes. Actually, one of the things we're gonna say that the chief financial officer was very astute in securing the US funds when the dollar was high. Kelowna is just going through this right now, and they didn't secure the funds for their truck. And they now have several and the tens of thousands of dollar shortfall. So Roxanne did a great job of pulling together the funds when the dollar was favorable for the Canadian dollar. So yes, but these are your two options.
My only concern is the industry. That's a big amount that we get in the industry with. And other providers of jobs.
But not if we go with the flat tax.
No, not if you go with, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's why I want to make sure that the financial commitments are met with both options.
Yes, they are.
Councilor Crowder, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of those smaller properties have been consolidated. I know in my neighborhood, there's places and they'll say they're sitting on, or it's for sale, or sitting on 4 lots. So coming from the coast, I was thinking, oh, 4 lots, that place is huge. But they're back from the day when they were mining lots and they're 30 feet. 30 feet wide. So basically, yeah, so if you did have 100 or 120 foot lot, right, it could still be in 4. So I'm pretty sure that there would be some way that we could figure out how to take any weird ones that are left over into consideration so that we're not burdening people for unusable lots.
Councilor Thompson.
I'm hearing what you're saying. I think if we gave our staff direction today and it was publicized, those who had not consolidated their property into one would have the opportunity to do that before the
Does that cost them anything to consolidate?
land title fees, and I'm not too sure. It's not that much money.
Mr. Mayor, further to this, the chief financial officer can also bring forward, through the reserve balances, through a surplus and different options, she can bring forward a couple different formulas saying that if we put $100,000 more towards this, what does it do to the parcel taxes? So council can then see what they like, but this will be done during the budget process. There is a couple options that we can bring forward, maybe an Excel sheet with 5 different options so you can get an idea of what it would look like. On these 3,048 parcels, what happens if you put another 50,000 towards it or $100,000 towards it? but it'll just allow you to see what the flat parcel with tax would look like.
Late in second room.
Great. I do remember when the fire truck was brought up before, like getting a more expensive one with a ladder and for taller buildings. I also hear that we want to be business friendly. Is another option to just think what would be the upper limit that we would want to charge business and then divvy up the rest between the others. So we don't get the large, don't have a limit and then divide the rest proportionally. That's another option. Is that clear to you?
That conversion factor is already in place, and this is what that looks like. So there is a threshold. So the chief financial officer presented it with this conversion factor in place. There's so many multiples that would be infinity.
What I mean is you'd figure out a maximum amount that you would charge industry, and then you'd work with the rest that's left over and divide it up proportionally so that you wouldn't be penalizing anyone.
What's the amount per day?
Mr. Mayor, I mean, it's less than, it's, yeah, I mean, just to give a perception for council is, in other communities, you can be paying up to $1,000 a year for a parcel tax, for infrastructure increases. So $1,000 a year for a period of time. Right now, we're talking $24 in this parcel tax. It's less than $2 a month. It is, it's relatively inexpensive compared to some of the challenges that we're going to be faced with when we deal with the infrastructure plan. So this is a good piece for us to remember, keep in mind as we're dealing with the whole story in our community. But
the concern is it all adds up, all the different costs for the residents.
And it is a multi-million-dollar business, Mr. Mayor, that will have a lot of impact to us.
Yeah. Councilor Crawford. Thank you, Councilor.
As Councillor Butler pointed out, there may be questions, people saying, well, if we bought this bigger truck and part of it was like industry and stuff like that. But if you look at, it balances. If you look at how many house fires we have as opposed to how many times we respond to industry. So it's way more on the residential side. So that kind of balances out.
You can put those out with smaller trucks, you don't need a $1.3 million.
Yeah, you can put them out with a smaller truck. Any fire truck is going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
So instead of 1.3, maybe it's only 1. But still, keep in mind that that 100-foot ladder can be used for a lot more than structure fires.
Yeah.
Not bungee jumping, but fire departments up in the air at overweight. No, river rescue, which causes a lot of fatalities, right? Would be eliminated a lot of it with this type of a vehicle.
The major industry for such a amount a year is,
Yeah.
it's a little bit overdone. Councillor Hammond.
About 3 flat taxes for 3 different categories. Like major industry, $150 or $100 a year, business, $75, $50 a year, and residential, $20 a year.
How much staff time will we be using up doing that?
To our chief financial officer.
To our chief financial officer, how much staff time will we be using up to do that again?
Yeah, 3 flat rates.
That would be quite interesting. I've never seen anything like that before, but I could definitely look into it. Legalities around
Gentleman in the second row.
Mr. Mayor, Phil Morrow, taxpayer. As a taxpayer, I really don't see much problem with me spending $24.51 a year for 5 years to fund the fire truck and have our industries that are paying a lot of taxes towards the city. Thank you.
Yes.
It's cheaper than your home insurance increase.
About 7-8 cents a day.
Just another comment about the cost of the truck. We have to remember that the lifespan of that piece of equipment is 20 to 25 years. And if we're looking to grow and to expand our community, I think we're really fortunate that we would have pieces of equipment at our disposal. Should we be fortunate enough to have, or unfortunate enough to have a building that would require that services. But, you know, I think it was a good decision.
And to have been able to acquire it at the time
Yeah.
by using good financial sense to the American dollar. Must applaud staff for that. Gentleman in the back.
Even at this late date, people seem to be stuck on the idea of how tall it can go. It's not really about height. People don't seem to get that message. It's about reach. The Silver Kettle facility is definitely not 100 feet high, but you need a truck like that to be able to get into it. And if our future is more densification, that's going to be more concentrated, not necessarily skyscrapers, but wider buildings. And this is a good asset to have.
Exactly, just like they build bridges, they build them too small. By the time they're finished, they're already in it. Useless. Similar concept. We're ahead of the game here.
Can I call the question then, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Proceed for discussion.
All in favor? So carried. Moving on to our next. Schedule for 2016 financial plan. And the recommendation is receive information as scheduled for the 2016 financial plan.
So.
All in favor? Carried. To our building inspector, the building department report from July 2013 to October 2015. And recommendation is to receive for information the building department report from July 2013 to October 2015. May I have a motion? Councillor Butler, Councillor Thompson. Discussion, Councillor Butler.
I'm just wondering what the qualifications are currently that are required for building and plumbing inspection in our city.
Mr. Mayor, to our CEO.
So the answer to that is the provincial government doesn't have the expectations in place. That's what the report is referring to now. We're talking about that. In our city right now, it is more of a tradesperson type of qualification. The expectation though for us is to have, for instance, our building inspector has a minimum qualification of a red seal in their profession. If I could, Mr. Mayor, could I speak to a little bit of the content of why we have this report before you? Yes. So we wanted to highlight the building inspection piece because we brought it in from the regional district at a time when financially we were making some changes to our organization. So we eliminated one managerial position. We brought this revenue in to fund a position. So we actually saved ourselves around $125,000. The purpose of this report is to highlight the benefits that is provided to the city financially, and also with the benefits that we received from a feedback and development perspective. We have a lot of homeowners taking out the permits for renovations. We have a lot of positive feedback in our community when it comes to the building inspection. There was a point in time where it was not received that well when I got here, when I first started my position here. But I think the highlights are more important to talk about the building act, which is coming down the line. Councillor Butler's point is, so what are the minimum qualifications? This is going to be the challenge that we're going to face is what are we going to do and how are we going to get there? We've talked about succession planning. We've talked about what we're going to do. We've got our job description done. We're going to put it out now to see if there's interest from any current building inspectors that would like to join our team when Mr. Copan retires. Our building inspector has provided us that notification that he has some intentions on that, and we have to make decisions on how we're going to replace that person. Now, there is a shortage of building inspectors in British Columbia. For anybody to believe that we're going to be able to pull people in from anywhere else, it's very short-sighted. We have our current regional district that provides building inspection services, but we were paying a considerable amount to get those services. We were paying up to 2 wages in respect to that, because we were paying for the chief building inspector in Trail, along with the position of building inspector in our community. We were also having some challenges because we were trying to figure out how we were going to do building or bylaw enforcement. So we brought the position in-house, and we actually have that luxury now where we're actually addressing a lot of our bylaw issues that we've had in the past. As we move forward, we are going to be posting our position, and we're hoping that we're going to find somebody that is perhaps local that has the qualifications to take on this position. Should there not be, what we will be doing is embarking upon this process to achieve the federal or provincial government expectations according to the bill to ensure that we are providing that. But along with that, council is going to have to make the decisions on our current building bylaw that is going to require some modifications, because we can't supersede anything that the province doesn't have in the building code. So if we have something that's basically ultra vires or beyond our scope of power, we can't have it in there, and we have to meet provincial expectations. But we can still apply to the minister for those to be included in our bylaw. But essentially, you can see the benefits to our community for having the building inspector as part of our team, and I think that we were very, very fortunate to have an ambassador, because Mr. Copan is a unique breed when it comes to the style that they bring to that position, because it's a very authoritative position, but Mr. Copan has been able to deliver in a way that customers have felt appreciative of the service. Not all of them, because we're never going to keep everybody happy, but generally speaking, he's been able to appease many of our customers in our community.
Councilor Butler.
So by what month in 2016 do we have to hire a certified building inspector by?
So, Mr. Mayor, the bill actually takes place for 2017. We would want to have somebody in place. We're going to start the process. We're going to start the process of seeing what we can acquire early in 2016. Doesn't mean the person will be employed with us at that point in time. We want to see what type of interest we can, and perhaps enter into a contractual agreement with them. If we're not able to sustain that, probably by early April, we're going to have to make a decision on going out to see if we can employ anybody within our team to get them educated. And if we can't do that, we're going to be going on a very broad search, and council and the community will be presented with a series of options of what it will look like. This is actually going to be expensive for our community. Should we not get anybody that's qualified? This is not a good thing that they've done. It's it's going to be expensive for us. We're basically, if there's only 10 people that can do the job, and there's 100 jobs that have to be done, those 10 people are going to be demanding a very high compensation wage. So it's not to our favor.
Councillor Butler.
And they have to have their building inspection level 3, I think it said, level 1, and do they have to have their plumbing inspection as well?
They have to have
Building and plumbing are
Building
combined.
and plumbing.
Okay. Level,
1.
Level 1.
Level 3, if we go into those types of developments, we would, the building inspector then basically has the engineer come in and provide the recommendation. So the engineer comes in, and depending on the type of structure and the size, the building inspector will make that determination.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Is there a possibility of training in-house if there's an employee that would be interested in taking that, working their way up
Yeah.
position?
Yes.
May I just make one comment that our building inspector presently, Mr. Copan, to my knowledge, has been doing an okay job and he's been handling everything pretty well. We've had no complaints come to my office. So I don't see what the relevance is on the credibility end at this point. We have to move forward with provincial legislation. At this point, it's a non-discussion issue. All in favor of the question? So carried. Now, moving on to our next one. In regards subject matters, the Building Act implications for RDKB. And the recommendation is that we receive for information the Building Act implications for RDKB. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Butler. Any discussion? All in favor? So carried. Our manager of operations. Subject matter, meeting with water purveyors group, and the recommendation is that we receive for information the meeting with water purveyors group. May I have a motion? Councillor Butler, Councillor Cross, discussion. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I noticed that there's an invitation to members of council to attend this meeting. Are there other elected officials attending from the other areas?
Dorcio.
So, Mr. Mayor, originally there was a meeting that was held that was basically, it was meant to be with the purveyors only and then having a discussion regarding what we're doing. Graham Watt was there. There was other elected officials that attended, and we're now asking it to be inclusive of our council as well, so everybody can attend, because this is a situation that we're gonna have to look at from basically, well, it's gonna be a provincial item, but it's gonna have to be specifically in our region, what we're all gonna do together. And I think that Mr. Reed was there. He might be able to elaborate a little bit more on it.
Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was invited to go to the first meeting, and we had some great discussions, and there were some other elected officials that did join us. So Mr. Watt is here today and wants to extend the invitation to council to take part in kind of a strategic plan around water restrictions and consumption.
Thank you. Councillor Butler.
thank you. I was just wondering who formed this group and when was it formed?
Mr. Watt's here.
Morning, Mr. Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this the Kettle River Watershed Management Plan, which the City of Grand Forks, among the other municipalities here and regional district, has endorsed, called for the formation of a group to help build capacity and share information among all the water providers. Currently, we have a very piecemeal system around water management. There's irrigation and improvement districts, there's municipalities, there's individual well owners and licensees, and the provincial government. And our hope was to bring people together to talk about the critical issues of water conservation, drug planning, drug response, that kind of initiative. So after the completion of the watershed plan and the development of the implementation team, a working group was proposed to bring together the water purveyors, and our first meeting was held this summer during the level 4 drought. So it was an initial response to start getting the people who are providing the water to start identifying what the issues are. And as Mr. Reed discussed, We want to ensure that there's both elected officials as well as technical people there to help people understand the full scope of the issue.
Mr. Mayor, so one of the things that's going to come from this is this is a bit of a reactive situation. It wasn't the plan process that we would typically like to have. But what we'd like to do is one of the things that I'm going to be bringing forward to our council is to be talking about is, and I've had some conversations with the mayor about this, is our region is going to need to fund somebody to look after this service for us. As we embark upon this type of impacts in our watershed, whether it's mining, whether it's logging, whether it's recreation, whether it's provincial referrals, federal referrals, whether it comes to water consumption with the different purveyors that we're dealing with in our region, what's happening at Big White when they're using their effluent to make snow, and what happens to that snow when it melts off and runs into our systems. One of the things we were dealing with such a vast area, and the recommendation is going to come forward to our council to open up that dialogue to potentially hire a water bailiff for our region. And that is going to be something to look at for protection of our water system, because we know that folks in small communities like Greenwood and Midway and Beaverdale, we have to have one person that can coordinate us and manage this piece for us. When these referrals come in from the ministries for logging, for mining, we need to have somebody that can speak the consistent language that we're looking for in respect to that. And the mayor and our dialogue was basically around how does that look and what's that going to look like? And that's something that we're going to be presenting to our council. Now, it may be an initiative that we have to look at asking the regional district for a service in that respect. But it's one of the things that we've recognized this year is going to be very, very important for us to talk about. And I believe that should be discussed at that meeting. I think it's something that the elected officials should be looking at. What can they do collectively to look after that? You're trying to huddle everybody together, trying to coordinate that. It's going to be very, very difficult. But you're going to have regional issues for air, water, and resources that you're going to have to look at. And that would maybe potentially having somebody such as I'm not going to say that Graham's the person today, but I'm going to say such as that, to be hired to look after that with a professional background in that area to help ensure that this is protected collectively.
Councilor Thompson.
I would be interested in attending that meeting. What time?
1 o'clock on the 19th.
We'll send that invitation out.
Okay, because I think water is an important issue to me, and I would like to be there.
Any other questions or debate? Councilor Butler.
I just wanted to say that I'd be very interested in attending as well. I was hoping to have attended the first meeting, but I guess we weren't invited to it. So yeah, thanks for inviting us to this one. I'd hoped that the mayor would have formed a standing committee on this in the summertime. I'd put that forward as an option, but I'm glad to see that somebody has taken it up.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So all in favor of the question? So
One
carried.
question. Oh, I'm sorry. Can the public attend this meeting?
Yes.
I think all of our meetings are open to the public. We don't always advertise smaller committee meetings. That's
Hang on, Graham.
yeah.
Just word about that from the elected officials' perspective. Before it moves into a public forum, there would have to be a committee struck that would have terms of reference that would allow for that. Because if there is a committee meeting and councillors are talking about specific dynamics that could potentially be in camera related to land, they would not be open for public consumption, just like our meetings are not. So at this point, we would have to be considerate of that.
Councilor Butler.
Which is exactly why I asked for it to be a standing committee of council, because I believe something as important as water absolutely should be open to the public. There should be nothing about water talked about in this community that the people don't know about.
That's right. We'll eventually.
Lady in the second one.
My understanding is any councillors who went to that meeting could not share in-camera information legally, isn't that correct?
It is, that's section, under
Yeah, so
section
that's
9
not
in the charter. But this isn't our committee. This isn't our structure. This is just our councillors are being invited to attend it.
So since the councillors won't be sharing in-camera information, then the public, why can't the public attend?
That would be up to me.
It will be up to the process, the terms of reference of the chair. So before we speak out in respect to attending or not attending, I think it's important that we understand what the terms of reference of this committee are, and then determining what relevance it does have to basically having the community participate and not participate. Because your elected officials are attending as your representative.
Yeah.
That you've elected to do that.
Okay. Anything you want
That's it.
Do you wanna have them please? Yeah, do you wanna have them do it? Dave, how long do you need?
15, 20 minutes.
Let's do it.
On our late items, we will be having a presentation by Mr. Dave Smith on behalf of the Transitional Housing Project, THPC, is that right? A report.
Dave, no, this is, can I see you for a second, sir? Mr. Mayor, can I see you? Please recess for 2 minutes.
We're recessed for 5 minutes.
It was very helpful with the Boundary Emergency and Transition Housing Society. And information was provided in June, end of June. And Mr. Jake Raven, I'm sure everybody knows Jake, the former chair of Whispers of Hope and strong advocate for homelessness. And he was monitoring the situation and had his eyes on the street from May to October 2015 and provided helpful input. So ultimately, the report came up with some, I guess you could say, analysis and best what we can come up with for recommendations. Now, the emergency shelter funding for Beth's has been already approved and on an ongoing basis has been for some time for 8 beds by DC Housing. And the report supports that and wants that to continue moving forward. Based on, and you'll see it in the report, the various informations on the numbers of people affected in the community and the numbers of people that could benefit from transition housing. They're much greater than the 12 units, but 12 units would appear to be so supportable for a recommendation to the senior government housing authorities who can provide assistance in that regard. And those formulas, from my experience in dealing with them, wouldn't say, well, we from time to time identify 40 people running around the community that would fit with this definition, so we should apply for 40. There's usually a ratio of around 1 to 3. It varies, I guess, from time to time as the ministry determines it to be, but if it's 1 to 3, then 12 would probably fit the mold for a reasonable request to senior governments for transition housing. That's housing for, say, 3 to 6 months stay by individuals as they get treated and helped and they have a safe place to be. So that is where that rationale came from, and it's in the report. The report wasn't real specific on support of longer-term housing. I would just say that the transition housing is generally in the purview of BC Housing. And the supportive housing is, for the most part, more in the purview of the federal government, which is under CMHC, Canada Mortgage and Housing. And it would seem that perhaps a portion of those 12 units that would phase out of transition housing into supportive housing, and without doing a lot of research on it, but intuitively, probably 50% of them, it would be good to be able to phase
some of those people into supportive longer-term seniors housing. We're going a little crazy here. Many of the people in transition housing are transitional and may move to other communities, and they may not be comfortable in the permanent situation and so forth, and there may be different reasons for that, but generally speaking, some of them would lend themselves to going into more permanent situations. And so I think this report simply would signal to look at the supportive aspect in relation to the transition housing. The main focus of this report is transition housing. Okay, now the business case is very important in moving forward. Grand Forks will not be able to deal with transition housing on its own, and will have to work in relationship with senior governments with their expertise and funding and wherewithal to make it happen. Transition housing request is made based on the assessment of information on hand. As I mentioned, more detailed assessment can be undertaken, but in order to obtain more detailed information, there will be a need, along with senior governments, to be able to access confidential information from provincial sources, i.e. the health authority, mental health, and perhaps BC social services. And indeed, as you'll see moving forward, this report would be used as the local rationalization to move forward if it's accepted by council. But no doubt the senior governments will want to take a look at this in relation to their own analysis of it and their own information that they would have on hand. But if we don't do this, we don't bring the issue forward to them. So we have to look at it from our business case point of view and say, this is what Grand Forks wants. We want transition housing. Therefore, we are forwarding the preliminary needs assessment study. So, Mr. Mayor, the business case qualified, though, whether the facility can contain a combination of emergency, transition, and supportive or more permanent housing, and perhaps along with the secondhand retail goods, which you have on hand presently, and the Habitat for Humanity Restore, which has been looked at already, or only some of these elements remains to be seen, and that'll depend on further work by THPSC, and depends on investigations, partnerships, the BC Housing Corporation and CMHC involvement down the road, and the project and site selection itself. All those things will come together. And would mention that the THPSC is in the process. It's currently in process as to dealing with some of its other mandates, which includes right now looking at sites. Now this slide, and again, I apologize to the media who I mentioned this may be a little hard to read, but it's simply put just to show we have the key actors that Grand Forks will deal with will be BC Housing Corp and CMHC. There are a variety of housing issues, housing key matters there that get dealt with by these different agencies. Generally speaking, BC Housing deals with its share and CMHC deal with its share, although you'll notice in looking at the X's that depending on the target group for transition housing, there may be some involvements with CMHC and BC Housing. And although many of the issues on transition housing are BC Housing, many of the issues on more permanent supportive housing are generally with the federal government, CMHC. And who knows, maybe the election recently may change the level of commitment that the federal government may want to go in, and those X's may change somewhat over time. Like provincially the same, if there was changes there. You never know about these things, but at present, I just show this to you that, I think maybe keep both federal, provincial, up to date with what Grand Forks is doing, make them aware of what you're shooting for, and receive the direction on which way to proceed, involve which particular agency at the time. So prerequisites for the business case then would be the rationale, which is the preliminary needs assessment, which THPSC has spent a lot of time working on, about 6 meetings worth. And the input was really fabulous from all the groups. They really delved into their brain power and knowledge and helped that happen. So that's before you today. The site selection is in progress, and the partnerships is very goodwill among all stakeholders. They have worked together before with other initiatives, and they have the goodwill to work together, and the partnership, I am confident, will emerge from that. Some contact has been established with project managers from CMHC and BC Housing. And if council approves this from the staff perspective, they will be in a position to keep them up to speed again and give them more information as we go. And Mr. Mayor, yourself and the CAO on behalf of council may wish to once this is approved, pass it on to the MLA and the MP to, if you wish as well, and hopefully it will go for a touchdown as we go forward. Okay, moving forward, I think the process is working quite well. We'd all like everything to go quicker, but it's working okay as far as I can see. We formed a THPSC. The needs assessment is before council, albeit we call it a preliminary needs assessment because there's data that we're not accessible to. The report could be strengthened with the support of senior governments, but I think it's in a position with all the editing that the committee has done to be proactive and put it forward. The site selection process is going on, and the formation of a partnership. Those two things will go hand in hand with THPSC. And then we'll go ahead on, I would suggest Grand Forks go ahead on with BC Housing Corporation and CMHC and determine a way to go. Just a note, leveraging a mortgage, that is going to be part of the business case. And that may well entail local asset contributions. The council should think about at this stage. No site has been selected, so you can't really be specific on this yet, but moving forward, donation of land or buildings or discounted values in lands or buildings for the purpose of affordable housing, which is permitted under the Local Government Act, Community Charter. Public or private donations of sort that maybe reserve budgets or different benevolent groups out there, Rotary clubs or other service club organizations. Partnership guarantees, long-term rental or lease arrangements as part of the project, and exemption initiatives, which again are allowed under local government legislation, such as reductions in DCCs or exemptions from DCCs. Hookup charges, frontage obligations such as curbs and gutters and streetlights and things that might be required, and building and development fees and development permit fees. So these things can be used to have a more favorable cost for a project, and the mortgage would go towards the project. And bearing in mind that the revenue for the mortgage will come from the rental from the individuals in the project, and many may be on social, or all may be on social welfare, but those are still funds that would go towards payment of the mortgage, and that will all be having to be done in partnership with senior governments and government agencies that will be involved with that. And that is where it's crucial for the senior governments and agencies involved. So, Mr. Mayor, I always bring my friendly ape with me every time, and he usually ends a presentation like this. This is hard work and determination and sound planning, site selection, a business case, partnerships with senior governments, BC Housing, community support, and the leadership, that this project is working forward and becomes successful. So having said that, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation would be to accept the preliminary needs assessment at this point, and there will be more THPSC recommendations coming forward down the road, but at this point in time, this recommendation is before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for your presentation and report. May I have a motion to receive the report and presentation from Mr. Dave Smith for information and discussion purposes, seeing as the actual endorsement is going to be put forward at the evening meeting under the recommendations from staff. Councillor Thompson, do I have a seconder? Councillor Butler. Open to discussion, should there be any? All in favor? So carried. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions from the media?
Yeah. Okay. Before we wrap this up, we'll now put it out to the media and the gallery for any discussions or questions. Question period. For the lady in the second row.
Okay, on the agenda, it was mentioned about fire insurance and costs. I remember Councillor Wereshagan has brought up the question about where the money was going to the increased ads from the city in the newspaper. And I was wondering, we're noticing still there's a lot of city ads in the paper. Is that still being paid for from fire insurance? Or has the city decided to invest more into advertising now instead of mail-outs? Or
If I could, Mr. Mayor, it depends on the information that we're being referred to. So overall, there's legislative obligations for us to advertise, such as meetings regarding land use issues, job postings. I'm not sure what else we're referring to. But that's just regular, that's just business, regular business.
so only things that are legislated right now are the only ads in the paper?
No, there's legislative pieces that we have to advertise. And then there's job postings, and then there's other business, whether it's information items for the community. So that's just regular business for us. I don't know that it's increased or decreased. What are the numbers that are comparable to last year? Is there anything you're referring to?
Well, I guess there was an insert or an ad, like the businesses part. That was the latest one. Before there was a full page of city workers. Was that paid by the city?
There's a full page, thank you for the firefighters. I remember the city was also doing it was like a city hall page that we had. I don't know if that's still coming out every couple months.
Every 2 months.
We stepped back a little bit after that one. We probably have another one coming up towards the end of this month. The City Hall Times is what it's called. It's basically an update for residents, whether it's it'll have a little bit on snow removal. It'll have a reminder for residents on certain things, dog licensing, things like that, that'll have to be renewed. We try to capture that under one document. But we've been doing that, the city's been doing that for years.
And will that be sent home to the residents in the mail with their bills, or so that every resident gets it? Because not everyone gets the Gazette, so I'm just questioning about that. The snow removal and everything, will that go to in the mail?
It usually goes into the utility bill or a another piece like that. But every time we add something into the utility bill, it requires a staff person to fold them all for 3,000 folios to put them into the utility bill. So we have to balance how we do that, because if we did that every time, we'd have a full-time folder folding things downstairs to get information out. So we try to balance how we get the information out. Electronically, digitally, newspaper, in the utility bills, our their website. But this is the information you'll get back to us when we do the survey on how we can better communicate. And
So now it's all the city's funding, no more insurance money is covering the costs, is that right? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hammond.
I might be able to give you some history on the City Hall news that was published. The City Hall used to put out a bi-monthly or newsletter in the mail. And so when I was working at the Gazette at the time, we approached the city and negotiated a much cheaper cost to them rather than putting it in the mail. Save the taxpayers money, we could do a 2-page every 2 months in the boundary weekend, which went free to every home. And then in 2010, when it got bought out by Black Press, we grandfathered into the West Kootenay Advertiser, which actually increased the distribution to 28,000 because it went. Our City Hall Times was being read in Caslow. But now I'm not sure if it's still in the West Kootenay Advertiser, which is free to the homes, or whether it's just in the Gazette, but it still was cheaper than doing a mail out
It's good
in the mail.
if it gets to everybody.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
It's not a question, but you used to do a newsletter you could pick up here some years ago. I forget what it was called.
That's the one that was replaced. I think that was the same one that used to go in the mail.
Yeah, and they had copies here and.
Copies here, or or they would.
So they
put in your
stopped doing that and they did a
utility bill.
2-page newspaper.
Next item is from our Chief Administrative Officer. Immediately following the committee to whole meeting, council will hold an in-camera meeting. Recommendation is the council convene an in-camera meeting as outlined under section 90 of the community charter to discuss matters in a closed meeting which are subject to section 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, an employee or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. And section 91E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the municipality. Also, section 91G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality. And 92C, a matter that is being investigated under the Ombudsperson Act, of which the municipality has been notified under section 14 of the Act. Be it also further resolved that persons other than members, officers, or other persons to whom council may deem necessary to conduct city business will be excluded from the in-camera meeting. May I have a motion? Councillor Thompson. Second. Councillor Hammond. All in favor? So carried. May I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? So carried. Meeting is adjourned.